If you could see one band live in concert, living or dead, together or apart, and they would come back if they're broken up, what band would it be?
The Clash.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Care to elaborate?
Just The Clash is probably my favorite band of all time. They're up there. Definitely, like, amongst my favorite bands that weren't really active during my life. They're definitely, or during my adult life, definitely way up there. And I think, I think a Clash show would just be raw, and real, awesome. It'd be a really dope scene. Yeah. That's like the band I would want to see the most. If you're talking about like the concert I'd want to be at for the experience most, I'd probably want to be at a Queen concert doing lots and lots of coke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean drinking Coca-Cola, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Cramps.
Hell yeah, bro.
The Cramps is like, that would have been the fucking show.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Misfits, like OG Misfits. That was something really
That's special. Yeah,
it was
that's
really special. I've seen Tiger Army.
Yep.
A couple of times. They put on a great show.
They're always good.
I've seen Rob Zombie, Marilyn Manson. Like some of my, pretty much almost all of my all-time favorite bands, I was able to see. Was lined up to see the Growlers, which is really like just such a phenomenal band that had to break up due to some controversy, unfortunately. But the show that we were gonna go see was in late March 2020. So
damn.
We were close.
Sucks. Yeah.
We were really
almost
close.
got there,
we
bro.
were days away.
Almost got there.
But Cramps was the one that I was just like, when I discovered them and discovered their sound and discovered what they were like all about, I was like, dude, this is like the band that I want to like score my life. Yeah, I've heard and seen footage of their shows, and that shit just looks wild.
Can I throw one more out there?
Yes, please.
Iggy Pop and the Stooges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been rad.
That would. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Cramps actually played with Iggy Pop a couple of
That
times.
sounds right to me.
Yeah. That would have been.
That's quite a show.
With all the Coca-Cola.
With all the Coca-Cola.
A body can muster.
That's right.
Cheers to that, man. Welcome back to the Jony Horror Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jony Horror, and with me, as always, my partner in crime and menace to society tonight. That's if you had your little label right there. That's
overall menace to society.
Yeah. Kalen Behrman, ladies and gentlemen. And together we are continuing our run on Shyamalan films. Shyamalanian films? I like Shyamalanian.
Shyamalanian films.
Shyamalanian films. And tonight's very special because it will be the first new Shyamalan film that we are discussing, and that is 2024's Trap, starring Josh Hartnett. And in regards to that film, let's just do like a little brief teaser before we run off and start talking about booze and other stuff. Kalen, when the trailer first dropped for Trap, what was going through your mind? What were your initial reactions?
Excitement,
Yeah.
happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was very into the trailer. I was very excited for the movie.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I watched the trailer one time and I was like, sold, done,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
I'm
Same.
here for it. Let's go.
I was like, that's an opening night movie for sure.
Yeah. And in regards to the premise of the film and kind of what we just talked about a moment ago, maybe we can dive just a little bit deeper. But do you enjoy concerts?
I have been to many, many concerts in my life, and I have enjoyed many, many, many concerts in my life. Tons, honestly. I used to go to shows all the time. We've gone to shows together.
We've gone to shows together.
I don't really do it anymore. For me, I think the bands that I liked and the scenes that I in were very youthful situations. So in my old age, I don't really go to concerts anymore, but I've definitely enjoyed a lot of great concerts in my life. Yeah.
We saw Social Distortion together at a very small venue. Is that correct? Like a very, very small venue. And I remember, like, it was a tiny little thing. It was like you, me, Nick, and I think TK was there. Back in, like, obviously Starbucks days, but
Yeah.
I don't remember. I remember, like, I had to work the next morning at like 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and I got in some sort of text message argument with Celeste.
Uh-huh.
So getting home at 2 o'clock
Uh-huh.
turned into going to bed at 3 o'clock.
Oh man. Getting up at 3:30 for work.
Yeah.
Still halfway drunk and beat up from the concert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do remember because at the time I was not particularly familiar with that music scene, and I was
Mhm.
only starting to, because like you had introduced me to a little bit of Tiger Army, a little bit of Misfits, and stuff like that, and like the Brains,
Mhm.
not to be confused with Bad Brains.
We also like the Bad Brains
Indeed.
at this podcast.
But that sort of rockabilly punk vibe.
Yeah.
And I remember like you guys all being pretty hyped about Mike Ness.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know who that guy is, but he's playing good music.
But you guys sure seem excited.
Yeah, I was like, you guys like it. And I mean, I remember there just being all the God, I can't even remember the term. Maybe it's greasers, but there're just so many of the guys with, their, white cuffed t-shirts, slicked back hair, and Dickies and Chuck Taylors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of greasers, lots of punks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think I still got a little bit of like punk rock left in me. I'd like to see a good concert or two. Next time Tiger Army comes to town,
Sure.
like that's always a good show to go see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always there for that. But I remember when I saw Misfits at Riot Fest.
Mm-hmm.
Back in, God, what was it? Was it 2016? I think it was 2016. And I waited, like, we all waited all day just in that crowd. And I got pretty close to the stage. Far enough away that I was like, all right, cool, I'm not going to be in the mosh.
Right.
But I was too young and too stupid to not realize that after pretty much 40 years of this band being the iconic band that it was, and them kind of reuniting for what was probably at that time the second time, because they had done a Riot Fest in Chicago like a couple of weeks before. They had done the one in Colorado. And I did not realize that the entire crowd was the mosh pit.
Yep.
And that was a very scary scenario.
That's funny.
I'm not necessarily a small person, but like I was getting trampled. My fucking shoe just came off of my foot just from people stomping on my feet. And I had to like get out further away. I ended up in a better spot where I had a better view of the stage and I could actually breathe and not die. After, a couple of songs. I waited for a couple of songs in that, and then it was like, dude, I actually want to enjoy this concert and not be like in peril. So I ended up at a pretty decent spot and then rocked out. But yeah, that was just like, I was like, yeah, I'm not cut out for, getting elbows thrown in my face and shit like that.
Funny story, guys. I remember when I took like a 20-year-old Johnny to a punk rock show downtown. Some big drunk dude was being like way out of line, like moshing around, but like running into people who didn't want to be run into. He was like running into families and shit, just being like a total annoying boob of a human being. And he ran into Johnny one too many times, and 20-year-old Johnny just grabbed this guy by like his belt line and grabbed him by his collar and just sent him far away. It was really funny. I'd never seen you do anything like that. I was like, wow, that was cool.
I have a vague memory of that.
I think it was a Chop Tops show.
Yeah.
And you were like,
dude, that's
yeah.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe
I think that's what you're thinking of.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Maybe it wasn't. Social D.
I think you're thinking of that Chop Top show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
You threw a fat guy real far.
I do remember that. Yeah. That's what it was.
Yeah.
God, I'm trying to. God, where was I pulling Social D from? Maybe. Weird. But yeah, no, that's absolutely what I do remember that. I was trying to think of the we went and saw a show at Ventura Theater. A group of us that was much like.
Oh yeah. That was
What was that band that we went and saw? I can't remember them. I always think back to that. I was like, I really like their music. I don't think they ever made it big, but they.
We'll have to text Nick. He'll know.
Yeah.
Exactly what band it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
That was great.
I was like trying to picture me at that show, and I was like, I think I was far too busy with
one of the band photographers. No, you were. One of the band photographers got a great shot of just our whole clique right at the front, like all of us just right there on the rail in the front.
Yeah.
As the band was going, they got a really great shot of all of us right up on social media. That we were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
That was a great show.
It was.
Had a good time. But enough about that. Kalen, why don't you tell me about your first watch of Trap, which takes place at a concert, bringing it all back.
Tell you about my first watch?
Yeah, or, more the audience, since I was present.
So, Johnny and I and my girlfriend went to go see Trap at the AMC in Thousand Oaks. And unfortunately, we had some really annoying, immature, dumb people in the audience who were like laughing at parts of the movie that weren't funny, talking to each other loudly, and generally being dumb and annoying, which unfortunately causes me a great deal of distress during a movie. I really don't appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
So there was that.
And the irony is that we had talked about going to a different theater. That's and right. You suggested that theater because you're like, I don't really have any problems with,
There's no drama at that theater. People are always cool.
Incessant youth.
Uh-huh.
And
then it was a bunch of middle-aged ladies that were causing the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was a weird crowd in there, too. It just seemed... There was young people for sure, but there was obviously, I feel like, M. Night generally lends himself to a little bit more of an older crowd. I include us with that because we've grown up with him.
Right.
But people who were, our age when they saw The Sixth Sense.
Right. 100%.
Are now still watching his films. But, yeah, I wasn't... by any means, didn't ruin the experience for me, but I am so amazed. I really, what it comes down to is I'm dumbfounded by people's self-centeredness is really what it comes down to. And that was the only part, I can, people being snickering and whatever, I have a much harder time when I'm in a controlled environment at home and I'm trying to show someone a movie for the first time, and then like my wife will come in and turn on the lights in the kitchen and start moving stuff around or whatever, and then like talk at me, and I'm like, shut up,
Right,
please.
Like, the movie's happening. Yeah.
For the love of God, this person is supposed to be experiencing the thing that I experience at this specific moment. Don't ruin that for them.
Let me share.
So in that regard, I'm a little bit more forgiving in a theater scenario because, maybe it's all those stories of, Spielberg and all the, other golden age of directors that always talk about how it's supposed to be an experience that you have with other people where popcorn is being thrown, people are laughing and giggling and snickering and enjoying the experience altogether. But
I completely agree with those people on that, though. My issue is when people they're not giggling and snickering because they're enjoying the movie. They're not giggling and snickering as part of the experience. I love that. There's nothing better in a horror movie than when you hear all the air sucked out of the room because something scary is happening, or when everyone screams and grabs the person next to them because something scary happened, or in a blockbuster movie when the audience starts cheering. Those are great moments. I love that stuff. What bothers me is people like in that theater who were basically laughing at parts of the movie that weren't funny, more or less for attention, because they were bored and they wanted to make it about them.
Yeah.
You're not being part of the communal experience there.
Yeah.
You're disrespecting the communal experience.
Exactly.
And I don't like people like that.
That's kind of what it comes back to, where I'm just like, dude, people are, surprise, people are just so self-centered, and I just can't stand, because we see selfishness on a grand scale.
Sure do.
And even in a professional arena, given that we both work in the restaurant industry, it's amazing the entitlement that you see from human beings. But yeah, in a scenario like that, where like really the bare minimum that is asked of you is that you be quiet and enjoy the show, and when people can't even do that, it's pretty flabbergasting.
Yeah.
To be honest, that people just can't shut up for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like people have to be talked, have to be seen, and I'm like, dude, nobody cares about you.
Seriously, the level of narcissism is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, we're all here for this.
Yeah.
No one's here for you.
Mm-hmm.
No one cares about you and your little bit that you're doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the people at comedy shows that won't leave the comedian alone.
Yeah.
It's like, this isn't about you, idiot.
Yeah.
We came to watch the person on the stage, not you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking hecklers.
Yeah, I hate them.
Well, now that we've kind of broken the ice and talked a little bit about our love of concerts and our love of cinema and how people are fucking stupid, that's how we start every show, folks. We are going to continue our discussion of our love of cinema in our next category called the Jony Horror News. Here at the Jony Horror News, it's basically updates on horror news, trailers, events, and more, and an excuse to just talk about horror movies and cinema in general, a broad scope. So, first and foremost, excluding this film, have you watched anything of note recently?
Well, I went and saw Longlegs when that debuted.
Yes.
And I thought that was really awesome. I really loved Longlegs.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. I strongly recommend Longlegs to anyone who is interested in that sort of movie. Definitely one of the most interesting movies I've seen this year. Probably my favorite movie this year so far.
Hot damn.
Yeah.
There it is.
And I don't see anything on the immediate horizon beating it. I think Nosferatu's got a good shot, but
we gotta wait till the very end there.
That's right. Otherwise, that movie for me clears it. That's the most relevant. Like, that's the movie I'm most confident I'm still going to be talking about in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a trip, man, and I recommend seeing it, even if you don't like that sort of movie, because broaden your horizons, you fucking twats. I said
grow up, folks.
Yeah, man. Just I would not say don't go into it the way, I mean, it was marketed very, very ingeniously, if
Mm-hmm.
I do say so. Like, great marketing.
Totally
It's
agree.
now Neon's like highest,
Highest grossing movie ever
grossing movie ever,
by a lot.
breaking all sorts of records.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much gonna outgross what Furiosa did in its entire run, probably within the next like week or two,
Mm-hmm.
for like a fraction of the amount of what it costs to get made.
Small fraction.
Um,
That's probably like a $5-10 million movie.
yeah,
Furiosa probably costs like $150 million to make.
yeah, exactly. So, big fan of Furiosa though.
Yeah, Furiosa's great.
Very good.
Support that movie. Like,
yeah, it needs a lot more.
buy a
love than
digital
it got.
copy, buy a physical copy.
Yeah.
Like, support Furiosa.
Buy
That
it.
movie
It's
ruled.
great.
Yeah.
I on that note, like, I might have like, and I fucking love Fury Road, but I
Mhm.
think I might like Furiosa just like a little bit better, just because there's a little bit more. As much as I love this is an action movie and we're making an action movie for an action movie's sake, I do like the fact that there's a little bit more story and a little
More of a
bit
story.
kind of twists and
Mhm.
turns for Furiosa.
Yeah.
That is what I'll say about that. I think it makes the two of them make a fantastic double feature.
Hell yeah. Hell of a duology right there of
yeah.
films.
Yeah.
Support George Miller, folks.
Yeah. Man is doing stuff that nobody else is doing, and
That's right. He's a gem.
yeah,
Take
dude,
care of
even
him.
Fury Road was not like a massive box office success.
It wasn't.
It gained a lot more traction throughout the years, but still. Damn, that's good. Yeah, so yeah, Longlegs, Furiosa, both fantastic. Both led by strong female characters too,
Hell
which
yeah.
is awesome.
Very talented young women.
And we're gonna go the complete opposite route right now and talk about a film that's led by two very, very aggressively male dominant boys, Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yay or nay?
In the very, very in the very simple world of online film review where it's just a thumbs up or a thumbs down,
Yeah.
it's a thumbs up for me because I had a good time watching the movie.
Yeah.
And I will probably have a good time watching the movie again. That said, I won't be sober. And I think from a story perspective, it's a lot weaker than the other two Deadpool movies. And I thought the second one was a lot weaker than the first one in that regard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the script and the story was definitely lacking. And I don't like that it feels like the lesson Marvel is learning is that fan service is the way to make money.
Yeah.
Because that's not how they made money to begin with. They made money to begin with by making movies that were fresh and unique, and they made us love that world and those characters.
Yeah.
And we looked forward to each movie for the sake of the movie itself.
Yeah.
And now it's like we look forward. I feel like they want us to look forward to the movies for the member berries.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's a wise strategy. And I don't think that's going to necessarily give me the kinds of movies I want to see.
Yeah.
So that I have concerns there, but overall, Deadpool and Wolverine is a fun movie to watch. Yeah.
That's what I wanted from it. That's what I got from it. I was highly entertained. It's definitely the type of movie that I see myself rewatching again and again just because of the buddy comedy aspect of it. The two of those guys have just insane chemistry on and off screen, which is really spectacular. Just all their press junket stuff that they've been doing has been really entertaining.
I want to back you up on that too. Like, on top of very entertaining action, the movie had really good humor. Like, it was funny. It was laugh out loud funny all the way through. Ryan Reynolds gets comedy.
Yes.
And it definitely had that going for it. That's a funny movie. Like, you will have laughs and you'll have thrills.
Yeah.
It does provide in that regard.
I agree with you wholeheartedly about everything you said about Marvel and what their strategy is. I mean, you and I have discussed it. Anybody who's listened knows that I'm more or less off the Marvel train.
And I think that's telling because that did not used to be the case.
No, not at all. But like, Endgame in my mind is a perfect conclusion
Mm-hmm.
to the 10 years of awesome cinema that came before it, you know? And unfortunately, the stuff that has come out since has soured my memory of the things that came before it.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have discussed that. But you know, so going into Deadpool and Wolverine, I wanted simply one thing, which was to be entertained, and I got that.
Mm-hmm.
But I 1000% can't argue with you. Like, the story is shaky at best, but you know, again, you're talking to a guy that just lives and breathes 80s slasher movies, which, you know, none of them make sense at all in any way, shape, or form. So I'm okay with nonsensical stuff if I'm being entertained.
I would argue plenty of your 80s slasher movies have more like functional story structure than that movie. I'm just saying.
Well, the minute you bring in multi-universe stuff,
Right.
The
But if you're gonna do it, it's on you to do it to make it work.
I
Like,
agree.
It's your responsibility
I
as a
agree.
screenwriter or a filmmaker to
Yeah.
make it work, and they don't even try. And
Well, I think they know at this point that, like, they didn't need to. That's not what they knew what they were doing. You know, they
Right.
knew what the audience was there for, and that they just found scenarios for these guys to fight, and then
right.
you know, team up and fight other people. So
that's my review, is what Johnny just said. It's like, think about the really badass action cutscenes in video games, and then think about the cutaway jokes in Family Guy. String all that together into a movie about Deadpool and Wolverine, and that's kind of what the movie is. Yeah.
I get it. And really kind of keeping in line with the superhero trend, this fantastic little thing dropped on Amazon a few days ago called Batman Cape Crusader, which is a noir spin, even more noir than what has come before it. Uh, Twist of the Dark Knight, brought to us by Bruce Timm and Matt Reeves and J.J. Abrams. And it is an animated series that pretty much strips Batman of all of his gadgets and kind of either reinvents certain characters or goes back to certain characters' very, very early interpretations. And it's got this very 1940s sort of aesthetic to it. Have you finished it?
I have. I finished it pretty quickly.
As did I. Within days, actually.
Mhm.
What are your overall thoughts?
A little disappointed.
Really?
Yeah, a little disappointed. And I'm going to acknowledge that I'm setting the bar too high. But when you tell me spiritual successor to Batman the Animated Series, I want something that I feel is in that tier, if not on that level. And I don't really think it's in that tier, aside from a couple of episodes that are very good. Real quick, you mentioned Matt Reeves, J.J. Abrams, who are on it as executive producers. I want to point out that creatively, Ed Brubaker did a lot of the heavy lifting from a writing perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that he deserves a lot of props. I think he wrote the best episode in the show, which was the 4th episode, the one with the firebug episode.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote that episode, and he did a lot of the overall writing at the behest of Bruce Timm, and I think he did the best he could with what he was given to do. If you don't know who Ed Brubaker is, he's a legendary comic creator, but in the film and television world, he's probably best known as the Westworld guy.
Got it.
I think he did a great job with what he had, but just overall with the show, I didn't love all the reinterpretations of all of the characters. I didn't really love the characterization of many of the characters or their relationships. Like, as just like an example, like, I thought Gordon was kind of a dumbass, and like, I thought the way Alfred and Bruce were written was kind of dumb, and I thought Bruce was kind of a caricature. Like, it was like they were going for the Batman version, the Batman, Matt Reeves, the Batman version of Bruce.
Yeah.
But they did like a cartoon is a funny word to use here, but they did like a cartoonishly
Yeah,
unrealistic take on that.
I can see that.
So it didn't work for me as well as I wanted it to. I still got a lot of stuff I enjoyed. I really love the Clayface episode. I really love the Firebug episode, the vampire episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking forward to season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think for Bruce Timm going on TV saying this is more Batman the Animated Series than Batman the Animated Series, like you're setting a very high watermark there for yourself to hit.
I can agree with that. I personally loved it from start to finish. I loved everything they did with all of the characters. I thought it was great. I really loved the dynamic with Bruce and Alfred. I get what you're saying about the caricature because Bruce is just so there's a way about him for sure where he's just supreme dick.
He's just like a sociopathic dickhead.
Yeah.
Like he's a
And I don't know if
character.
Well, without getting too much into it.
We don't want to turn this into.
I like that he's not a nice guy to Alfred. Alfred's doing it all kind of out of his duty, and that they kind of need to grow together, which you do see a bit of that.
They've been together for more than 20 years.
Yeah, I get that, but Bruce is, being Bruce and maybe like being a spoiled brat the way he actually is. I mean, again, without getting too deep into it, I thought it was a very unique approach to a lot of the characters. I like what they did with Harvey Dent. I like how him getting his face messed up is similar but different to the way it is in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed the episode where you get to see multiple Robins all kind of that have come from different backgrounds in the comics, but all seem to have the same background.
That was that vampire episode I mentioned.
Yeah, I like
really
that
good episode.
I also really, really like the Clayface one. That's him going.
Episode.
That's like the OG interpretation of that character, which I really liked. I like what they did with Harley Quinn. I thought that was a very interesting kind of flip for her character. Yeah, it was just. I agree. The relationship, the dynamic with Gordon, not really there, but obviously they're leaning more on that relationship being with Barbara. In this one. There was just a lot of stuff that was similar but different in ways that it just kept me guessing of like, oh, I see what they did there. They're acknowledging they're just kind of going left of the dial of what the standard story always is, and they're doing it just enough. They're not over extending on anything. They're just tweaking things enough that you don't really know how this story, you think you know how this story is going to play out, but you don't exactly know how it's going to go. And I really enjoyed that because there's enough familiarity in the content that it's comforting, but enough changes that I'm not bored by it. So and I really like for the most part really like the animation style. I think the voice work is pretty good, and the score sucks by comparison, but that's not their fault. You're kind of going up against one of the best, most iconic, if not the most iconic animated score of all time. So Disney films excluded. But anyways,
last word I want to say on that is I think that the reason that Batman the Animated Series is the kind of 10 out of 10 special thing that it is because of the co-creator with Bruce Timm, Paul Dini.
Yeah.
I think he was the beating heart of that show. I think the way that he introduced an operatic Shakespearean tragedy aspect to all of the villains, where they all had a backstory and they all had a tragic character arc that led them to where they were. And you had Batman as this kind of sympathetic superhero who was vengeance in the night, was a badass, who was going to beat the shit out of everybody. But he also like genuinely felt bad for like these people he had to send back to Arkham because like their lives were fucked up and it wasn't their fault. I think that is what took that show. The aesthetics that Bruce Timm created are beautiful, but Paul Dini's storytelling is what made it truly perfect. And there's no Paul Dini here, and without him, it's just not at that level, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That is a fair assessment.
Still recommend the show. It's a cool show.
Yeah, especially if you have Amazon Prime, it's fucking free.
It's free. Watch it. Like, give it a shot. It's a cool show.
And just rounding this out, I don't know if you saw it. I don't know if you've even kept up with this series or not. It's pretty intense, but for us horror fans, we got a trailer for Terrifier 3, a full trailer, and it looks freaking insane. And by all accounts, looks like a hell of a time. We're getting it at the end of October, but it is a Christmas movie, and the wonderful tagline is "Christmas comes early this year." I love that. I am a big, huge fan, probably even more so than Halloween movies. I love Christmas horror movies.
Yeah.
I think they're so much fun. And the idea that we are taking Art the Clown, who has pretty much desecrated every, like all his movies have been Halloween movies, going back to All Hallows Eve. So, just destroyed that holiday and, really did the worst things to it. I really feel like taking the most sacred of holidays and putting this character, who is, for all intents and purposes, it's our generation's Freddy Krueger. He's the most despicable creature to ever exist, but we're still laughing at him and still kind of rooting for him all at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I'm incredibly interested to see how that film plays out. Behind Romulus, this is going to be my second most anticipated film of the year. And I don't have expectations out the wazoo, just because I know I'm going to go into it and get exactly what I wanted from it, even if it does the bare minimum, which from the trailer it's going to go above and beyond. And the creator said within the first 15 minutes, it's going to be the most disgusting, bloody thing that you've ever seen. So fingers crossed that's very exciting. Have you seen have you seen any of the
Nope.
Terrifier films?
Nothing.
Oh my god.
Not a bit of it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm actually and I'm completely unsure. I don't know if I'd like it. I don't know if I wouldn't. I have no idea what to expect from it. So.
I mean, if you go into those movies honestly, I would 1000% recommend starting with All Hallows Eve, which is the film, it's an anthology film, but they all have art pop up at some point, and it's kind of separated from the Terrifier films, in the sense that it's its own thing. It came out years before,
mm-hmm.
And then they made Terrifier, which does feel very connected to that film, just in the aesthetic and the grime. Terrifier 2 gets a little bit bigger budget, mm-hmm. gets a little bit cleaner.
Okay.
Just a smidge. Still has that grimy feel, but the acting gets a little bit better.
Okay.
And all that. And then we'll see what this third one. It definitely still has the grime factor, but Terrifier 2 is just insanely over the top gore, but still a very very competently made picture. I recommend them all.
I'll probably give those a shot during Halloween season this year. Yeah.
That could be a fun discussion right there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I seem to have run out of booze already. I don't know what happened there, but I don't know. What are you thinking? Maybe we should go swing by the bar?
Yep.
All
Always.
Right. Let's go to the bar. Here at the bar, we're going to swing by the well. Just so happens to be Johnny's well. What are the odds? And here at Johnny's Well, we discuss booze. We are taking our shared love of movies and alcohol, and we are putting them together. And, well, first and foremost, what are we drinking tonight?
Johnny and I are enjoying some Johnny Walker Green Label 15-year blended malt scotch.
There's that name, Johnny, again. It's just
there. It is.
You can't get away from it.
No, you sure can't. Yeah, we're just drinking some neat scotch tonight. That's the evening we're having.
It's a fantastic evening, if I do say so myself.
I don't disagree.
Aye. Yeah.
This is excellent scotch, by the way.
It's fantastic
It's
scotch.
excellent. Like, go ahead and grab yourself some of that. It's great.
This is two bartenders coming at you too. Yeah. Give ourselves a pat on the back right there.
Also, not that Johnny Walker needs our plug, but Johnny Walker, give us some stuff.
They're gonna blow up after this.
That's
Just
right.
wait and see. But Green Label, I would say we both agree, is supremely underrated given its price point.
Yeah.
This is a tasty beverage that we're sipping on here. So please do yourself a favor. If you enjoy scotch, get yourself a bottle. And if you don't enjoy scotch, I don't know, go to fucking church and get your head sorted out. I don't know.
Grow up and drink some scotch, folks. That's what he's trying to say. Learn to shave. Learn to parallel park. Drink some scotch.
Everything that the adults do.
That's right.
And Kalen, given that we are discussing Trap, we are discussing M. Night Shyamalan's thriller suspense film 2024 Trap. That is what we came here to do.
That's the name of the podcast.
That's what we're doing tonight. Bring it all back. Kalen, if you were gonna sit down, I don't know, some patrons, friends, family members, and show them Trap, and then whip up some cocky tales.
Yes.
What beverage would you be serving?
So I was thinking, my theme was drinks you get at a concert, but it's me, so elevated.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, what's a drink we would get at a concert? Maybe like a whiskey Coke.
Yeah.
Right?
Jack and Coke.
So I was like, how can I elevate a whiskey Coke? And I had a perfect drink come right to my mind. It is called a Youthful Expression, which is how you know it was made by an old guy who doesn't drink Jack and Coke anymore, right? It's called a Youthful Expression. It was created by bartender Souther Teague at Amoria Margot in New York City, and it's in his cocktail manual that he sells. It's like his stuff, and it's a drink I really love. I really love making it. And it comes off as a Jack and Coke type, but with more complex flavor profile and a little bit less sugar. What you use is you use an ounce of your favorite bourbon. I like to use a bonded bourbon. I usually go with like Evan Williams White Label, nice and cheap, but good bonded bourbon. An ounce of London Dry gin. For those of you who don't know, the old Cuba Libre, the original rum and Coke, came with like half an ounce of gin to give it a little bit more complexity. So you do an ounce of bourbon, you do an ounce of gin. I just use a regular London Dry like Ford's or Beefeater. And then you do an ounce of Amaro Ramazzotti. Amaro Ramazzotti, if you want the taste profile, is Dr. Pepper. Wow. That's the taste profile. I swear to God. Also, if you go to the really cool bars in LA, they'll be like, hey, you want to do a Zotti? That's what they're talking about. They want to shoot a shot of Ramazzotti with you. So 1 ounce bourbon, 1 ounce gin, 1 ounce Ramazzotti. And then I hit that with about 3 dashes of cherry bark vanilla bitters. I get those from the Bitter Cube company. And then you literally just soda water that bitch to the top. You know, you do that in a tall glass with good ice. You soda it to the top. You give it a very gentle stir. And you have what is basically a very like complex. You've got the herbal nature, but you've got the sweet and the Dr. Pepper and the cherry and the vanilla. But, you know, a lot of it's soda water, so it's not actually a giant sugar bomb. And it's just a great long drink that like drinks like a soda. It's so bomb.
Folks, like, even if you're watching the video, you probably cannot see my face right now. Like, the expression on my face is like pure wonderment, because every fucking time Kalen and I sit down to discuss cocktails, the man blows my fucking mind. I like to think of myself as a pretty decent bartender. May I even venture to say good. But the way this man understands the the craft is mind blowing to me, and his extensive knowledge never ceases to fucking impress the shit out of me. I want that drink so bad.
We will
right
definitely
now.
make those next time we hang out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's do it. That's fantastic, dude. That I love that. I love every bit of that. Even the bit about the Cuba Libre, because I hate when people order that fucking drink. Because I'm like, all you want is a rum and coke. You
Oh
jackass.
no, yeah. If you just want a rum and coke, say you want a rum and coke.
Yeah.
Just say you want a rum and coke.
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
It's like, so you want a lime garnish on your rum and coke?
Right.
Go fuck yourself.
Right. Yeah, a traditional Cuba Libre would be rum, lime juice, gin, and a version of Coca-Cola that doesn't exist anymore. So stop trying to order that. It's not what you want.
I love this son of a bitch. I came up with I will full transparency. I kind of went the same route. I was also thinking color scheme. I was thinking this is a bubbly girl concert, and I was thinking about maybe something that would sneak up on you, like as far as alcohol wise, in keeping with this theme of this serial killer under disguise. So my original thought, and all that said, this still maybe should be the drink. It's just flabbergasting to me that I'm suggesting it, but strawberry daiquiri. Because it does have that bubblegum flavor.
Like a frozen strawberry daiquiri, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
A blended one? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I myself have had a strawberry daiquiri on the streets of New Orleans, and boy, oh boy, do they sneak up on you.
They gonna get you, folks.
That was my original thought. That was the very first thing that came to my brain, and I liked it well enough, but I also did strive for something a little bit more complex and a little bit more geared toward our protagonist / antagonist, Cooper, something that also still stays with the color scheme of red as we see on all the posters, and I came up with something that I feel like you've probably featured before, but Sazerac. Felt like Sazerac is good. He's a fireman. Feel like firemen would go for a whiskey drink. So traditionally, I think there's a number of ways to do a Sazerac involving rye and cognac. The way I learned, and this is the way that I would make it, is that you spray or rinse a chilled cocktail glass, probably like an old-fashioned glass or something like that. A smaller bucket glass, rather, probably like an 8 ounce or something like that. Chill one of those and rinse or spray it with absinthe. Then you do a sugar cube with some Peychaud's bitters and a little bit of cold water. You muddle the sugar cube, and then this is in a mixing tin. And then you add about 2.5 ounces of rye whiskey with some ice. Stir it, give it a good stir. I am a big fan of stirring nice cocktails, folks. There is a reason why, and I'm going to call out James fucking Bond on this.
Yeah.
Because when he says martini shaken, not stirred, you are bruising the alcohol when you are doing that. You are hurting the alcohol, essentially.
You're over diluting it. You're aerating it.
Yes.
Folks,
Good.
Unless there is like citrus or something in your cocktail that needs to actually be shaken for integration, egg white. Cocktails that are made out of all clear spirits and clear liquids are stirred.
Yes.
Damn it.
And I mean, I bartenders that I work with will shake their Negronis, which I'm quite frankly offended by. I think we're all in agreement that you do not shake a Manhattan. So
Jesus
thankfully,
Christ.
we're all in agreement on that.
I hope so.
But dude, if it's a nice cocktail, if it's a classic cocktail, do not fucking shake it. Anytime any motherfucker asks for an extra cold martini, I want to smack them. And like all you are getting at that stage is just fucking watered down alcohol. Stupid. Anyways, that was a digression. But I must vent.
We hate James Bond, is what we're saying.
He's stupid.
He's a stupid
wrong.
idiot, and he's
Though
wrong.
a Vespa is it Vespa or Vesper?
Vesper.
Vesper. Vespa's a motorbike of sorts. Very, very tasty cocktail. So anyways, you stir all those ingredients in the mixing tin, and then you pour them into the chilled glass with the absinthe that you have sprayed and or rinsed the glass in. And then you garnish it with a lemon peel. You rub that around the rim, get all the oils out, because that makes people want to drink even more when they smell that and taste it on the rim of their glass. No ice. You've chilled the alcohol and you've chilled the glass. So this is served, for all intents and purposes, neat. It's a nice, stiff cocktail. Very much made for sipping. And though something tells me that any jackass who wanted to order it and think he was cool would probably shoot it.
Oh, Jesus.
What a waste.
That's quite a thing to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, that would be my drink of choice. Man, I fucking love talking cocktails with you. It's arguably my favorite part of this whole show.
I want to point out too that to me, a good Sazerac is an elite cocktail.
Yeah.
Like that's top tier. Like a good Sazerac is just fucking beautiful.
I will tell you guys, in all honesty, I've only had it ordered a couple of times, and every time someone orders it, I am so scared to make it because it is like people know. People, if you're ordering that drink, you know what it's supposed to taste like.
Yep.
And it is a drink that I'm like, dude, I fucking hope I got this right because I don't make it nearly enough. So it definitely takes a certain level of craft and skill to get it just the way it needs to be. Being peckish, as I always am during a movie, do we consider Trap an eating movie? Was there anything in it that you thought?
Yeah, I think it's an eating movie.
I think people actually eat in the movie.
Right, people are eating in the movie. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
I had popcorn and candy and rather enjoyed my snacks. So.
Yep, I was eating some M&Ms.
It is safe to eat during Trap. You shall not be grossed out by any pus or organs falling out. This is a PG-13 movie after all, folks.
That's right.
And with all that said, it is time to move on to our next category. Blah, blah, blah. You've seen it all before.
What?
Here at Blah, 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 you've seen it all before. We discuss the plot and production of the film and whether or not this film really is something we've seen before. If it's a worn out trope, a tired concept, or if it's fairly new. So, Kalen, will you please enlighten us as to the plot of M. Night Shyamalan's Trap?
The plot of Trapped is a middle-aged dad taking his early teenage daughter to a big pop concert. Think Taylor Swift, think Beyonce, like a big, huge superstar pop concert. Taking his daughter there to make her happy. And once he arrives at the concert, he realizes that local police, SWAT, and FBI are present at the show. And the show is, in fact, a trap set to catch a local serial killer named the Butcher. And we are given very early that the Butcher is, in fact, this dad, played by Josh Hartnett. And he is the one caught in the trap. And that's your pitch. That's the general plot of the movie. And that's what we get from the trailers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir. That was great. Can you think of any movie that you've seen with this concept before?
Nope.
Me neither.
Nothing. Yeah.
So in those terms, it's very fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Really, even from like the perspective of we're kind of with the killer this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
We're like almost rooting for him to figure a way out of it.
I'm not almost.
Yeah.
I was rooting for him.
Yeah.
For most of the movie, I'm rooting for him. I'm like, you can do it, man.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wild. Like you
Mhm.
find yourself kind of like biting your nails going, oh, fuck, he's going to get caught. Oh,
Mhm.
don't do it. Don't do it. Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wonderful scene where he like walks into a room filled with cops and he is so casual and cool about it and like just knowing what he does. And man,
I wish I could ever have that kind of confidence for anything in my life. Like,
yeah, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. Yeah, I think this is an amazingly fresh concept, which is which I'll you know kind of elaborate here on in a few minutes. But yeah, so in those terms, maybe we haven't seen this all before, which is kind of
rare.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like I've said it on this podcast before. I've definitely said it many a times before. There's no new stories, just new ways to tell them. But this feels like a fairly new story to me. So that's exciting in those terms. So with all that said, let's read a little bit about the production of this film, which will be taken from Wikipedia. So I must give a shout out to everyone who has contributed to the Wikipedia page for Trap. Thank you. All right. Development. In October of 2022, Universal Pictures announced a then untitled film from filmmaker M. Night Shyamalan. In February 2023, the film was revealed to be titled Trap when it changed distributor, as Shyamalan and his production company Blinding Edge Pictures entered a first look deal with Warner Brothers Pictures. The film sprouted from conversations Shyamalan had with his daughter, singer-songwriter Salika. Thank you. Salika, about combining the concert and the theatrical experience and devising an album for a narrative similar to how Prince wrote the titular album for 1984 musical Purple Rain. Shyamalan initially planned to let another filmmaker write the script and direct the film from his original idea for the thriller set at a concert before changing his mind after realizing he could make the film with Salika. The premise was inspired in part by Operation Flagship, a 1985 sting operation in which disguised law enforcement arrested 101 wanted fugitives at a convention center, having invited them under the pretense of gifting them free NFL tickets and an opportunity to win an all-expense-paid trip to the Super Bowl. Shyamalan pitched Trap as setting Silence of the Lambs at a Taylor Swift concert in reference to her Eras tour. Sorry. And wrote the screenplay in about 5.5 months, a personal record for him. He produced the film with Mark Beanstalk. The man's name is Beanstalk.
That's a great name.
God bless him.
What a cool guy.
Why weren't you named Jack, you son of a bitch?
You have a responsibility to the world to have a son and name him Jack, sir.
Oh my God. And Ashwin Rajan. Salika stars as singer Lady Raven, whose concert the characters attend. As her father was writing the script, she composed 14 songs for the film designed diegetically to match the action on screen. Salika previously collaborated with her father by making a single for the film Old and an EP for the series Servant. Shyamalan was inspired to incorporate musical elements by Purple Rain and visiting Salika on tour. Salika also noted Bollywood cinema in which music is often plays a key role in the storytelling as an influence and listed Adele, Billie Eilish, Rihanna, Rosalia, and Taylor Swift as inspirations for her performance. She described Trap as a Shyamalan American version of a Bollywood movie that is grounded and the songs make sense, not necessarily a musical, but completely music centric. Josh Hartnett did not watch any media in preparation. Okay, weird. For the role of Cooper to make his character his own and researched psychopathy,
Psychopathy.
thank you, including books about serial killers. This is a weird thing to say. Did not watch any media in preparation.
It sounds like somebody asked him a really weirdly worded question, and he just said no. Like, were you watching movies to decide how to do this? And he was like, well, no, I was just doing normal prep.
It's just like a weird thing to say.
Right, totally.
Shyamalan wrote Haley Mills' investigator character as a maternal figure to contrast Cooper's lack of empathy. Ariel Donahue, who plays Cooper's daughter Riley, attended school in between filming. Okay, guys, again, as I always do, I apologize because some of these sentences are just notes that people put in, and it's not really, they don't really go anywhere like that last line. Yes, kids do have to go to
Kids
school.
go to school. It's a thing we do. Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah.
All right. Filming. As with his recent self-funded projects, by the way, Shyamalan pays for like all of his movies now. He pays to make them. It's wild.
From what was it? The Visit on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's all self-funded.
God bless him.
Yep.
Shyamalan and a storyboard artist storyboarded the film and held extensive rehearsals with the actors. Shyamalan originally intended to frame the film in a 4:3 aspect ratio, but after a discussion with cinematographer, oh my god, I can't say it. Can you say it?
Can you point to it for me? Sayambu Mukdirpram.
That's so great. So sorry, sir. That is a beautiful name. I did not want to butcher it. They agreed it limited their ability to shoot the movie and was too much work to create a feeling of claustrophobia. Changed the look to a 1.85 to 1 aspect ratio, and the film was re-storyboarded. Damn, that's a bitch.
Wow. Jeez.
Principal photography was scheduled to begin in Cincinnati, Ohio in August 2023, where it would have received over $9 million in tax credits from the state to film there. Production relocated to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and was granted an interim agreement on September 18, 2023 to film during the SAG-AFTRA strike under the working title Good Grades. Filming was scheduled to occur from October 16th to December 8, 2023. The film's pop concert venue known as Tanaka Arena was filmed in Hamilton, Ontario, inside First Ontario Centre, a 20,000-seat arena that the production had obtained access to for 2 to 3 months because it was undergoing renovations. That's lucky.
That is good stuff.
Excuse me. Songs in the film were performed on stage as if it were a real concert, with extras having received the music beforehand to be able to sing along, and a videographer recording on stage material and projecting it onto the stadium screens in real time.
I love that.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. Cora Kozaris was the choreographer. The order of the filming consisted of audience reactions with music playing, followed by Salika dancing and miming on stage, and then after the extras went quiet, actors with dialogue with a beat track in the background to help actors maintain the rhythm. This all seems like I've thought about this while we're watching it. I was like, I don't know how they did it. That's really impressive.
I was having the exact same thoughts. I'm like, this was a hard movie to shoot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hartnett and Donahue screamed parts of their dialogue to match the intended noise levels of a concert. Trap was shot on 35mm film stock, which required the crew to wait 3 days for dailies to be processed and returned from a film laboratory in Los Angeles to review the footage. Interesting. It was not shot digital. Dude, I would have thought specifically for this type of film with what they were doing with the concert stuff that would have been shot on digital.
Well, you're already giving yourself so much extra work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's wild.
Yeah.
Especially like to reset everything and all that. You think you just want to be able to see it right away.
Mm-hmm.
Post-production. Trap was released the same year as The Watchers, the directorial debut of Salika's sister, Ishana Knight Shyamalan. A poster for The Watchers appears in the background of the scene in Trap. Salika and Ishana Shyamalan worked on their respective films on their family's property in Pennsylvania, with Salika operating in a recording studio while Ishana mixed her film next door. Sounds like a hell of a place to live.
Yep.
Oh God. Here's another name that is just impossible for me to pronounce. There's so many apostrophes and stuff.
So that is one of those like Northern European names that we would have no idea how to even guess how to point it out. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Sir, we are not, no disrespect, we just don't know how to say that name.
Sir or Miss.
Yeah, sir or madam, I'm sorry.
You guys can look it up on the IMDb page, but they composed the score independently from Salika, and editing and mixing were composed on June 22nd, 2024. The soundtrack album, Lady Raven, features Kid Cudi and Russ, both whom star in the film, as well as Amay-Ray? That looks like what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
It was released by Columbia Records on August 2nd, 2024. The songs Release and Save Me were released as singles. God bless America. I swear, every time I go to read, nobody has a normal name.
Nope.
Aside from Mark Beanstalk.
That's right.
A name I will remember until my dying day.
In perpetuity, folks.
That's wild, man. The what they had to do again. Like when we were like sitting there watching it, I was like, how was this orchestrated? This is huge.
Yep.
Like seeing all this in real time and everything. It's madness.
And like think about how few movies shoot on sets that size. It's not even on set, locations that size with crowds that low. Like think about how many background actors this movie actually had in like every fucking shot.
Yeah.
Movies don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not even a thing. Like it's really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, I imagine that there's a good chunk of it. I highly doubt that they had 20,000 extras. So I imagine there's a good chunk of it that was digital. Like you would do like people X amount of rows back so you could see real people and then punch it up via computer generated images in post. But
I'm curious about that though. It doesn't look that way. It looks like it's all shot in a.
Well, it's also a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is at nighttime, or in the dark rather, and it's a lot easier to cover up CG in the dark. So,
yeah, that's true.
But again, still a monstrous feat. Either way.
I'm just saying they shot with a lot of people.
Yeah,
like, there were a lot of humans in real physical space in this movie, in a way that you rarely see these days.
They shot on 35mm. Again, I'm flabbergasted. That's mind blowing to me. That with this many people, this large of like scale scenario, that like in order to like reset and be like, oh, like this is all supposed to be in sync.
Right.
Like. It's wild to me that you would choose to do that instead of digital. So that's like a ballsy move that I'm like I'm here for. Like, it's awesome. Clearly turned out well. I mean, we talked about this before on our other episodes where it seems like M. Night Shyamalan just like knows what he wants. People are happy to be there, and he's really good at his job. So his shoots do not seem to be
There
in
never
turmoil.
seems to be drama. Yeah. Yep.
Which is really
his talent
fucking
always
dope.
seems to be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. So, in keeping with things being really, really cool and us being in a good mood because we're starting to get drunk off of Johnny Walker Green, we're going to go to the good stuff.
So, here at the good stuff, we just talk about the things that we liked about this movie. So, I think I'm going to take this one, start it, because I feel like I had originally had this one thing at the back end to save it, because it's the thing I was most excited to talk about, but then I felt like I couldn't talk about the rest of the good stuff without constantly going back to that, and that's Josh Hartnett. As far as I'm concerned, this man is the reason this movie works as well as it does.
Oh yeah.
He really does carry the whole picture. Up until a certain point where there's sort of a switch that doesn't last for too long. And we'll talk about that a little later as far as whether or not that worked. But he is, for all intents and purposes, our protagonist throughout this movie. He is the lead villain and hero all at once, which is not an easy thing to do. I've liked Josh Hartnett for a very long time. I'm really trying to think back to what the first film I ever saw him in was.
Was it The Faculty?
It wasn't The Faculty,
Okay.
because I had seen him in movies when I was young, and I wasn't allowed to watch those type of movies when I was young. So, I honestly cannot remember off the top of my head what the first movie I ever saw him in was, but I just enjoy him. I think, like, I really, really liked him. Did you ever watch Penny Dreadful?
Yeah.
I thought he was fantastic in Penny Dreadful.
Show's dope.
And that was like, it seemed like he had been away for a while and then came and did that show. I was like, oh, cool, he's going to blow up. And then he went away for a while again and then popped up in Oppenheimer. And had just like, I was like, there he is, that beautiful, handsome, charismatic son of a bitch. And yeah, I just, the range that he has in this, and everything that he has to do, we talked about this on the car ride home, like, he has to be funny, he has to be loving, he has to be menacing, he has to be afraid, he has to be confused, he has to be, the range of emotions that he has to go through in this picture is kind of astounding. And really, again, one of the things that we talked about on the car ride home is my only comp to him is James McAvoy in Split.
Right.
Another Shyamalan
Another
joint.
Shyamalan joint, which also is completely different.
Yes.
Yeah.
1000% different in terms of these characters that we're talking about, but just it's really, really impressive. And like, if nothing else, this guy, I really hope he's getting phone calls based off of this role, you know?
Bro,
so,
yeah.
Please, I know you have this on your goods too. So.
I'm a Generation 1 Hartnett fan. I watched The Faculty when it came out in 1998.
Yeah.
And I was a little boy.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the coolest guy in the world. Like, that's the coolest person I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And so I've always been a Hartnett fan. I've always thought very highly of him. I think you can go all the way back to that movie, and he's a baby in that movie. That's 26 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, he's a kid. He is great then. He is great then. Like, he's always been a serious talent. He's always been a guy with a ridiculous amount of presence. He just has that je ne sais quoi. He's got that innate gravitas that's hard to teach, but he's also very skilled. Like, he can, as you know, you're just talking about, he can also just go through the ranges and do his thing. Yeah, I've always been a Josh Hartnett fan. He's always been someone that I've been interested in seeing. My understanding is that his absence from Hollywood has been really just self-imposed.
Yeah.
He blew up very quickly, very early, and he never needed to be Brad Pitt. That's just not something that interested him. He had all the money he needed, and he works on a what interests him kind of basis, is my understanding.
Yeah, I watched him do one of the I think it's Variety who does the timeline of his career, and he talked about it a little bit and talked about like how he blew up and how he got Faculty, which was his first movie, but Halloween H2O right after that.
That's
Halloween
right.
H2O, I believe, came out before.
It came out before.
So
and those movies, he was immediately like, oh, that guy.
Yes. So he was just kind of under the impression that just the work would just continue to come, which wasn't necessarily the case. But like when it came to celebrity status and him, he was talking specifically about Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And he was like, do I really want to make this jump to become this level of a movie star? And he thought about it in terms of what it meant for him and not about like how other people would view him and how he would or would not, live up or, not live up to those standards basically, and how he didn't really consider it in those terms and how it was something that he just wasn't mentally and emotionally prepared for. And I mean, I can only imagine because, I get that vibe from him very much that he is not the Hollywood type in that regard, not the movie star.
He never needed to be Brad Pitt. He never needed to be Tom Cruise. Like that was never something that he needed for his life.
Which makes me respect him that much more. That he's in it because, and he talks about this. He's like, I wanted to make movies. I didn't necessarily want to be an actor. He's like, thought I might want to be a writer or director just because I loved movies so much and just kind of happened to become an actor.
Happened to be good at acting and have the face for it and all that. Yeah.
And honestly, like, with the exception, I think his name's Zeke in is it Zeke?
That's right. Zeke.
In Faculty. This might be my favorite role of his. Like what he's able to do and this what is essentially a fucking terrible human being.
Oh yeah, he's a bad guy.
The worst. Like he's like Dexter Morgan, except Dexter Morgan just kills everybody.
Right.
And somehow sorry, Salika, is the most likable person in this fucking movie. And that his charisma is, definitely plays a big part in that. And I think even, Shyamalan knows that when we get to that final scene of him in the back of the squad car or the truck, the bulletproof truck, not unlike the one that Harvey Dent is in The Dark Knight. And he's breaking out of his cuffs, and we just linger on him as he kind of like laughs to himself that he knows he's gonna get out of this, and I just felt like that was Shyamalan going like, this guy is just, he's the star, but like he's the fucking star, I think he's great. I can just lean into one of the other things that I had because this again comes into play, which is the father-daughter dynamic. I think is very good here. I feel like even with the disconnect that Cooper has as a psychopath, that he does care for his daughter in his own way. And even there's a moment where he tells her, like, don't go anywhere, just stay right here. Basically, you can't trust anybody. Don't, I need you to be safe, sort of a deal. And we very much know that he's thinking about all the times that he's, taken and hurt people in that moment. but you're still going, yeah, he's telling her this because he knows the world and he does not want that to happen to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the final moments of the film where she comes and gives him a hug, as he's being arrested, like, I felt that moment. That was a very genuine father-daughter moment there. I don't know. How do you feel about all that?
I really like it, and I will say that logically, I'm not sure that it tracks. Like, and I'm not arguing that it needs to. By the way, movies don't need to make real world sense; they need to make internal logic sense, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure that it tracks in real life because I feel like a person who doesn't feel empathy and doesn't have a conscience would not love their children the way that someone like you would, for example.
Yes.
That said, I don't care. I like it so much for the movie. It's such a good contrast and character story to have a guy who is this monster and is a true monster, right? The most real version of a monster. Like, he literally kills people for entertainment. Innocent people he doesn't know. He kills them for fun because he views them as playthings that are not real.
Yeah.
Like a true sociopath. But to contrast that with this kid who I think I think if you're over a certain age, it's easy to look at her and be like, yeah, I can kind of get what it would be like being her dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because we're old guys, but I think that gives him a relatability.
Yeah.
That makes the story work so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that young lady really sold her role well.
Yeah, I do too. She is a very believable, like, teenager / preteen in that ballpark.
Yeah, teenager
who is, loves the superstar, the pop icon.
And she loves her goofy dad, who she's embarrassed by.
Yes,
the way that teenage girls do when they have a decent father. Yeah,
and I mean, I will say that was like, as the entire movie is playing out, like, I'm like okay with like okay, well, eventually he's gonna get caught. That's just the way the movie has to play out one way or another, and I'm okay with everything. Like I like all these things that are happening, and Josh Hartnett being like a scary serial killer. But the thing that I kept on going back to throughout the movie, I was like, oh man, I don't want this relationship with his daughter that is so beautiful to be broken by this. Like, I love that. I don't know how this is gonna wrap up in a way that is gonna be satisfying or I'm gonna be okay with. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that's gonna be the point of the movie or not, but like that was like the thing that was bothering me as I was watching the movie, going like, God damn it, I don't want to see this poor little girl get her heart broken because she's so in love with her dad,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
that was I think that's a very good dramatic stake to have in those terms.
Yeah, I agree.
But please, I've babbled on for long enough. Please take the stage. Hit me with a good thing.
Well, I love the general concept of this movie. Like, there's a certain degree of like, so I'm not saying this to be cynical. I just want to get the cynical part out first. This is Nepo Baby the movie. Like, this is M. Night Shyamalan being like, this is my daughter, and she's the best, and she's so great, and you're all going to like her now, and you're all going to follow her, and I'm giving her the boosties. And that's true, and like, I don't fault him for that. Like, those are his kids, and he's going to try to help them however he can, and that's how people behave. But I think because people were caught up in the sort of cynical nature of the whole Nepo Baby thing, they missed the fact that this is actually a really interesting artistic choice.
Yeah.
To be like, all right, you're going to write an album. Like, I'm going to write a script. Then you're going to write an album off of my script. And we're going to communicate back and forth. The script's going to communicate with the music to create a story. And then we're going to create a concert. And your music is going to serve the story that I'm telling in the movie about your concert. That's a really cool idea. We've never seen anything like that.
No.
And that's just kind of a rad concept.
I mean, speaking as a parent, like, I agree. Like, when I went into this movie, I didn't realize that the pop star in question was his daughter. I found that out
Oh.
while we were watching the
Okay.
credits. I was like, oh,
Okay.
Shyamalan.
Right.
It was like little baby. I was like,
right.
and I was like, oh, there's her name again.
Yep.
Original music. I was like, son of a bitch.
Okay,
She's
that's
the
funny.
fucking musician in question. I was like, God damn it, this is bad. This is more indulgent for indulgence sake. And then as the film went on, I was like, okay, yes. And then again, the more we kind of talked about it, and like even after the fact, sitting in the car ride, we discussed it, and I was like, it did not bother me as much as I thought it would, because I thought the music was good. It suited the story. I thought she was pretty good. She's not like a fantastic actress by any means. God love her. She's great singer.
Mhm.
But she did quite well in the scenes. I thought she did quite well in the scenes where she needed to be good. And then reading about it and kind of finding out that they'd kind of gone through this as a team, kind of like reading the IMDb trivia after, I got home and all that. I was like, that's really, really interesting. And as a parent, there would be very few things more fulfilling than having your child who maybe doesn't exactly share the exact passion, but you guys found a through line
Mm-hmm.
to be like, hey, this is what I do and this is what you do, and let's
work together and
work
do a
together.
thing.
That sounds so cool.
It's very hard to fault them for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about that at all.
Exactly.
It seems a lot less Nepo baby and more just like, let's make something together like a dad and a daughter. And again, he funded this himself.
Uh-huh.
So it wasn't like some studio gave him a whole bunch of money to go like, hey, like go make your daughter famous. Like he doing all this himself. So in those terms, again, it's like I find it very like hard to fault. Like any good dad wants to, do something cool with his children.
Yep.
So in those terms, I do think it's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept in general, like just the story concept, is something that I have listed here, which is a serial killer. We follow a serial killer trying to get out of a trap set for him. Baseline right there, great. And then you put it inside of this concert with all of these people, and then he's surrounded by cops that are all like looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. So cool. Great story. Yeah.
Wish I thought of it. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's a great concept. And, I think a natural segue there real quickly is I think that I did know all this ahead of time. I pay attention to all this stuff. I'm plugged in at all times because, I'm always excited to learn the next thing about the next movie.
Yeah.
So I did know that it was Salika Shyamalan. I knew that was his kid. I knew all that going in. And I was weary of her not holding up her end of the bargain. And I think that you cannot argue musically that she did anything wrong, that she didn't hold up that end of the bargain. But when we transition later in the movie to her being an actual actor, I was weary of that. I was like, what if she doesn't know how to act and she just sucks? And I have noticed, and this isn't like Kalen takes down YouTube reviewers or anything, but I've noticed a lot of reviewers saying basically that she sucked and she hurt the movie a lot with like bad acting. And I feel like those are a bunch of people who don't know anything about acting or filmmaking, just trying to sound cool, dunking on the Nepo baby, because she just didn't. Like, she did not suck. She held her own. And if you had not known she was an actor, you would have not known that she wasn't an actor.
Yeah.
Like, she did her job.
I agree. Like, I think there's at least one review in question that I sent to you that we could, probably both agree on. Like, when that came up, I was like, really? Like, was like, I don't think she's not winning any Academy Awards, but I was like, I believed the character. There are moments where there's just kind of like, she's just kind of like staring, or there's something that's not quite. Maybe I would have asked for a little bit more in certain regards, but like, I certainly would not be like, she sucks.
Right.
But you and I are also like, so much more so than, I wouldn't even say the reviewer in question that I sent you, because I feel like I would like to give that person a pass, because generally speaking, I feel like they're a little bit more forgiving than like your average like Twitter bot or something like that, where like so and so sucks because they just suck, and they suck because they're the suckiest suck that ever sucked.
Yeah.
But you and I are so much more, I think, empathetic to what delivering like a good performance is, or delivering even like a passable performance.
Right.
I've watched so many bad movies that I know what really, really bad acting looks like.
Right.
We all know what good acting looks like. There will be blood. You're welcome. There it is. Go watch
there you go. That's what good acting looks like. Go watch
that is fucking what. But so very, very few of us like watch the shit on a regular basis. Hi, me. I do. And I don't even watch the shittiest of shit. I watch entertaining shit. There is shit out there that is so fucking shitty that you can't even watch it because it's boring as fuck. That is what bad acting looks like, folks. Like, genuinely bad acting. People, like, reading fucking cue cards. And this girl is, like, crying.
Right.
She's emoting emotion. She's scared. She's, like, sympathetic. And there's much more going on. Like, again, is she Josh Hartnett? No.
No, of course not. Would you expect anyone in their first other than Josh Hartnett, would you expect anyone in their first role to be Josh Hartnett?
Yeah.
You just wouldn't.
Yeah.
But here's the thing too, is like you're talking about watching the bad stuff. I'm talking about, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to trash anybody, and we're not that kind of show, but I'm talking about like popular mainstream television and film where people who are not considered bad actors turn in performances that aren't that good. And I'm not calling that like great. I'm just saying that it's very serviceable. And like there are popular movies and television where people turn in performances that aren't serviceable.
Yeah.
And no one says a word.
Yeah.
And then this girl who happens to be M. Night Shyamalan's daughter turns in a serviceable performance, and it's very popular to talk about how bad she sucked. Yeah. And I feel like there's a little bit of haterade going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel bad for the man. Because I feel like he talked a little bit about this in that clip that I sent you, where he's talking about like how he funded his movies and everything like that, and where he had gotten to a point where people essentially weren't going to give him money anymore to make his movies, and he was like, all right, well maybe I can write novels, maybe I can do X, Y, and Z instead. And then he just decided that that wasn't for him. That's not his medium. That he just loves to make movies, basically. And he was going to go about it any way, shape, or form that he could. And I really like, for his pedigree, I really can't think of too many filmmakers that endure the beating that he does on a consistent basis. Like, people are so cruel to him all the time on his movies, and I just don't understand it, because like you and I have talked about on so many occasions this season, that maybe you don't like the movie, but it doesn't mean it's not entertaining. He's coming up with good ideas and interesting characters at the very least.
That doesn't mean it's not well crafted, and that it's not like there's not real talent behind it. Like, it just doesn't mean that. And, you know, since we're here, like, I'm just going to say this part now because we're here. What you're saying is exactly what I've been thinking and feeling lately. There is just a institutional hatred towards M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
There's an institutional, let's all point and laugh at this guy, at M. Night Shyamalan. You see it in professional reviewers who, like, work for, like, more, like, real institutions, like, you know, Variety or whatever. You see it in YouTubers who shall remain nameless, who are like popular random dude YouTubers. You see it in regular people you talk to. There's this fundamental groupthink. I'm trying not to use an insulting word here. There's a fundamental sheep-esque groupthink that people partake in, where they look at M. Night Shyamalan and they go, "Oh, look, it's Shyamalan Ding Dong. Tell me about the twist."
Yeah.
And that is such a nonsense way to look at a filmmaker or to look at a film. We've talked about this. Spoiler alert, folks. Most of M. Night Shyamalan's movies don't have big plot twists. Most of them do not. They have reveals,
Yes.
and some of them have plot twists. Most of them don't. So if you're going into an M. Night Shyamalan movie, or you're writing a review, or you're shooting a YouTube review for M. Night Shyamalan, and the first thing out of your mouth is plot twist, you don't know how to do your job. You don't know how to analyze film. You don't know how to objectively assess this filmmaker. You simply do not. You don't have the tools. And you just see so much of that. You see so much of the, oh, Shyamalan Ding Dong's twist. And it's just like, nobody gives the guy a fair shake anymore.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because, like, he's such a talented filmmaker. He doesn't hit it out of the park every time. You know, he hits a lot of singles and doubles, and he misses for some people. But, like, for a guy who is so prolific and so talented and always brings unique things to bear, and he always brings, you know, fresh stories. He's always operating at a high level of craft, even when you don't like the movie. The guy is skilled. Yes. And, like, no one talks about that. That's never, like, no one's ever talking about, like, have you ever noticed that even bad M. Night Shyamalan movies still show, like, ridiculous craft on display? Like, no one ever says things like that. So I would say, like, if you're looking at reviews for this movie, also if you're watching this, I really hope you've already seen the movie. But if you're looking at reviews for a movie like this, and you're looking at the general populace discussion of the movie, I think you need to understand that there's a real slant against this guy where he's just not given a fair shake by the average reviewer or fan. And try not to look at his movies through that lens. Try to actually just watch the movies and see what the movies themselves are doing, because the narrative does not fit the reality of the films themselves. Thank you for letting me say all that.
No, please. I mean, that you were able to articulate very much what I've been thinking about ever since I watched this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, there are plenty of M. Night Shyamalan movies that are not my favorite movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But he has at least fucking 2 movies that I can say are arguably, like, in my top, like, 50, if not 25 movies, if not 10 movies that, like, I fucking adore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there are a lot of other movies underneath those tiers that are very, 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 very good, and
Mm-hmm.
at the very least, very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, that's what you just said is so great that nobody just sits back and gives the man credit for being creative.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I fucking love Steven Spielberg, but I go into a Steven Spielberg movie and I'm like, odds are I'm not going to see anything that really makes me think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But every time I go to an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I am going to walk out thinking about something or another. I'm not just going to, whether I like the movie or not, there's going to be thought
Mm-hmm.
in regards to that film.
Mm-hmm.
Steven Spielberg, yeah, that was a Spielberg movie. There it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's the GOAT. We got it.
We get it.
Yeah.
Shyamalan will always, there'll be something to think about and talk about after his movies.
Mm-hmm.
And as we discussed in our previous episodes concerning his films, the man, his knowledge and his talent when it comes to the craft, the small details are always so overshadowed by the twist.
Mm-hmm.
And we've
No one
talked
pays
about
attention to the actual good stuff.
yeah,
Everyone's just like, what was the twist? And I'm like, did you see the actual movie? Like,
Yeah.
the story?
the foreshadowing that he does.
He's so good at that.
Yeah,
He's better than anyone in mainstream Hollywood
yeah,
at foreshadowing and like actual like story structure.
Yeah.
Like, man.
yeah. I
Yeah.
agree. And I mean, we will we've discussed this. We will continue to discuss
Yep.
this, I'm
This will
sure,
keep coming
because
up, y'all.
we're going to keep talking about M. Night Shyamalan movies for the next few months. So this will continue to be a running theme, and I think I might just need to tag him on it on social media so he knows that we love you, buddy. You're doing good stuff.
Hey.
You're doing what you're doing, man.
Nothing would be cooler than to get a shout out from M. Night Shyamalan. I'm like, yo, those guys are going to bat for me.
But before we, turn this into a Kalen and Jony and Shyamalan versus the world, let's keep on talking about things that we liked about this movie. We've already discussed the concept, Josh Hartnett, the father-daughter relationship. In terms of also with the concept, just the setting of putting something in a concert, just cool to me. That's not a setting that you see very often, particularly in these terms, like a Taylor Swift-esque sort of massive concert. I really cannot think of anything that has really kind of been done on this scale. So in those terms, just the setting itself is also very unique, which was another just plus going into the movie. And I think they lean into that pretty well. They utilize that environment in a lot of interesting ways. Personally, I think that we could have maybe continued and done a little bit more with it here or there. Not that it is not used to the nth degree. It's just maybe when we get to the shit here in a couple minutes, I can talk a little bit about more kind of what I mean by this. But I really do think that they really do get quite a bit of bang for their buck in terms of what they were able to utilize, particularly since this place was being renovated during the time. That's such a score, dude.
Right.
And also, wherever they were able to hop over to Canada to keep on filming during the strikes,
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Fucking gold, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any other good stuff that you want to talk about?
I think that this movie. I think that some of the people who didn't like this movie, I had a thought. So as we were walking out of the movie theater, there was actually a guy in his 60s exclaiming loudly that it was the worst film he'd ever seen in his life. Which, by the way, man, skill issue. But
I was I was gonna say, if that's not hyperbole.
I know. I'm like, bro, you're in your 60s. How many movies have you watched, dog? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, skill issue. My point there being that this movie is. You guys are probably tired of hearing me say Hitchcockian, but there's a reason I say that so often, and it's because Alfred Hitchcock is your favorite filmmaker's favorite filmmaker. And that goes for, whether we're talking about Spielberg or whether we're talking about Shyamalan or whether we're talking about Jordan Peele. Everyone is heavily inspired by Alfred Hitchcock. This movie is the most Alfred Hitchcock thing that Shyamalan's ever done. It feels like someone resurrected Hitchcock and he made a modern movie about the current Taylor Swift climate. It is a blatant love letter to Hitchcock, and it is shot and structured and presented very much in that way. And I could see a person who has zero familiarity with that not totally getting this movie because it's not really the way we make movies anymore. Especially if you're some Gen Z kid who's only watched movies in the 2010s and the 2020s, and that's your view of film. I could see you being a little bit thrown off by this because this is very much the way thrillers, we used to get thrillers like this back in the day quite a bit more often.
Yes. Yeah. I think we have talked about Rope on here before. Have you watched it yet?
I love Rope.
Yeah.
Okay. So I borrowed Johnny's box set of Alfred Hitchcock, and I've been going through it. Rope is the best new one I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rope is just masterful. And this feels very much like that type of movie. Like the audience knows something that the characters in the film have to figure out, and just watching it unfold. I mean, it's that great, very much that great quote that Hitchcock had that the audience knows that there's a bomb ticking, sort of a deal. Like,
100%,
yeah, and you're very right. This is I almost wonder if there was a way to make this an R-rated movie, because like, just in the sense that it's just not a movie that's designed for teenagers. There's no reason this movie needs to be a PG-13 movie to get that wider audience. Like fine, just drop some F-bombs in there. Make this an R-rated movie, because
make one of the violent scenes a little bit worse.
Yeah,
and just
this is a movie for adults, I think. You know,
I agree.
But apparently not that 60-year-old man.
Yeah, except for that one.
Only watched Peter Bogdanovich films, Gone with the Wind.
That's right.
Francis Ford Coppola's, early career.
Yeah, the 70s only. There's nothing else. He's never seen The Outsiders, no. He's definitely never seen Jack.
Oh, God. Oh, fucking A. All right. Well, without any further ado, I think it's time we continue talking about bullshit in our next section, the shit.
So, here at the shit, surprise, surprise, we talk about the shit we didn't like about the movie. Kalen, take her away.
Well, I thought
Like, no complaints, perfect film, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Nothing wrong with it. No, I thought, as is common with my critique of Shyamalan films, that the film could have used a little bit of improvement in the pacing.
Yes.
Something I've talked to you about, and Sandy, the two people I went to see the movie with, who have both said this, and I completely agree with both of you. There was a little bit too much of the just concert footage, where there wasn't like story necessarily happening along with the concert footage.
Yes.
Where it felt kind of like a concert movie.
Uh-huh.
It was like, this isn't supposed to be a concert movie. It's supposed to be a concert movie.
Yes.
Right? So there were moments where it felt like we were just watching a Salika Shyamalan concert, which, like, there's worse things than that, but that's not what we're there for.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it could have improved in that category, I do think, and I think the pacing there could have been better. And then I definitely think once we leave the concert venue, which, by the way, I think the movie after that is really good. Like, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens after that. It gets very interesting.
I agree.
But I feel like all of that just could have moved faster.
Yeah, I agree. Those are my first two things.
Mhm.
Pacing, and that as soon as they get out of the concert, the movie just goes off course.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. There's I like that back half of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't necessarily play well with the first half of the movie, if that makes sense. I agree. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. I like the dynamic, like the switch. I think it's fairly interesting whether or not it actually works in terms of the story, because what happens is once we get out of the concert, the perspective of the protagonist changes from Josh Hartnett to Salika Shyamalan's character, Lady Raven, which also don't love the name.
I agree. Don't you think even just like Raven would have been better than Lady Raven? Yeah.
And then how everyone just calls her Lady
Raven. No one, like, the people who know her personally would call her by her name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or like when she was she ends up at their house, like she could have been like, you can just call me Jasmine or whatever. Like if
Lady Gaga came over to your house for dinner, she wouldn't make everyone call her Lady Gaga. She'd be like, my name is Stephanie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But yeah, that kind of the weird thought that I had about halfway through this movie, and I was just thinking oh, this movie, certain things, it was during those concert scenes that were just concert scenes. I was like, all right, well, eventually this movie's going to pick up, because there's no way this movie is anywhere past an hour and 30 minutes. That was an actual thought I had in my brain where I was
Yeah.
like, this movie is going to be like, I guarantee you, an hour and a half flat.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 90-minute movie
Mm-hmm.
because this plot cannot sustain
Right.
anything more than that.
It's a simple, yeah. Mm-hmm.
This movie is an hour and 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 15 minutes too much in this movie. And that's kind of going back to what I was talking about with the concert where like I think that there should be a finale that takes place outside of that concert, but I think it should have taken longer to get there.
I agree.
I think that there was a moment when they're leaving and I was like, oh, weird. They're getting out already. What can this mean?
I thought that too.
And then the story that follows after that is there's plenty of suspense and drama. The problem is that suspense and drama should have been at the concert where we've built all of this up, and then you cut it short to try and ramp it up again. But at this point, the audience is already conditioned to think that once we've made it out of that concert, that things need to fucking go.
Right.
And they don't.
Like, the end of the concert has to be the end. Like, leaving the concert has to be the beginning of the end of the movie.
Yes.
And then there's kind of a lot of movie left.
Yes.
And there's even, like, okay, and so here's where my specific complaint comes in. There's even, like, kind of a lot of movie after. So, Lady Raven is you know, his prisoner, is the Butcher's prisoner.
Josh Hartnett uses her as a device to get out of the concert
to escape the trap. He uses the superstar. Yeah.
He reveals his sinister background to her and says that he has a man in captivity and will kill him if she does not help him escape, essentially.
Right. So then that's where we have the switch where Lady Raven becomes sort of our protagonist and Cooper becomes our villain, right?
Yes.
But here's the thing for me that was weird. I felt like once Lady Raven escaped, and I liked her escape. I thought that was cool. But once she gets out of there, once she gets away and she has won, we still spend kind of a lot of time in the movie.
We go back!
Yeah!
We go back! And that's the part where like I'm like, all right, cool. Had this switch like been official and like followed us all the way through, I think I could have gotten behind it a little bit more. But we switch back to Cooper. And Lady Raven's not in the movie anymore.
And she just dips.
She's gone.
Yep.
She doesn't come back at all. And I'm like, I don't understand the narrative structure anymore. And who we're supposed to be following and so yeah, particularly like once she's gone and we go back to Cooper and his wife
and their house,
like
you're
I'm like, I'm not invested in the fact that this gal knew and she's the reason.
She's talking about how she popped him. And he's talking about how he has to kill her now, and I'm sorry, and like, but I was worried you were cheating. Like, what are we doing?
And I'm like, dude, I know the pie is spiked.
Right?
How could you not know the pie is spiked?
Right?
Like, why would you not assume that just like she's offering you pie, you should turn that down?
You should probably not eat the pie.
Like, come on, you've been pretty smart about people's intentions up until this point. And you already know that your wife turned on you, so why would you eat that fucking pie? Like I said, I like the whole sequence where they're in the house at first, and Lady Raven is enjoying some hors d'oeuvres with the family. Like I thought that was all very, very interesting. Again, like it still goes on. Like if this is going to be like. In my mind, if this is going to be your finale, it's still dragging.
Yep.
There's 25 minutes of the movie after that.
Yep. The movie just keeps on going.
Yeah, that to me, like, had we done instead of 65% of that movie at the concert, made it a like solid 85%, and that last 15% is a chase, an escape that goes X, Y, and Z. I think that would have been a much more kind of like satisfying climax for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I won't like, pacing aside, the events as they unfold are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of fun to watch Josh Hartnett just kind of keep on
going,
figuring his way out of shit.
Yep.
When she's in the fucking limo,
Yep.
and the SWAT guy's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll take her." I'm like, "Son of a bitch, that's Josh Hartnett right there." I heard his voice.
Yep.
Like I got a smile on my face. I was like, I don't know how he did it, but god damn it, this son of a bitch cannot be stopped. But yeah, pacing, so much like, God, in the editing room as the editor, I'm like, Knight, I don't know what you want me to do with this one.
Yeah, we gotta do something here, big dog. I would also say like the only time where like the story really like where I was like starting to check out a little bit was when it felt like they wanted there to be a lot of weight to the conversation between him and his wife. When I'm just like, I don't know her.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't been here.
Yes.
We haven't seen them married. We haven't gone through this with them.
Yes.
Like, and I understand that it's implied, but like, I haven't seen it. I'm not there. I don't care that much about all these ways his wife is feeling right now.
What would have like, and I don't know, this might be a stretch narratively, but if you had done the proper legwork, maybe it could have worked, and this would have tied everything back to fathers and daughters and given more of a fucking payoff to the whole thing. Is that if it was his daughter that had figured it out and tipped off the police, and she had been playing him, and that would have been the reveal, because we spent the entire movie with them. Because I agree, at the end I was like, I don't really
care about his wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, experience here.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And it would have made that, like, that thing that I was talking about, like, how is the daughter gonna deal with this, so much better if she had been the one to discover X, Y, and Z. Maybe not as in depth and like really, but maybe like she saw something and then
figured
something out, and then she was the one that leaked it to the cops that they were going, like, in terms of the story, like the way it's structured and everything, like the leaps in believability that it takes, like, granted, like, I'm in it for the ride, like, in this world, my suspension of disbelief, like, it's there. It would not have taken that much for me in this world to believe that this would have happened, that could have happened that way. Like, there, boom, Knight, I got you.
Got you, dog.
Sequel. Or the remake in 20 years.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that could have been a little bit better of a that would have, everything that led up to that would have been a payoff to that moment, rather than this bit that we get with the wife that again, like, we just met you like 10 minutes ago, hon.
Right, we just met you. We don't know who you are.
I don't really care. Yeah. So
I also would have liked, like, it could have been fucking 20 seconds. I would have liked to go back to Lady Raven.
Yeah.
For like a moment.
Well, when the car pulls up, like, I kind of roll my eyes because his daughter runs out and gives him a hug. I kind of rolled my eyes because I thought it was going to be Lady Raven. Be like, I want to see him get arrested. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But then the daughter rolled out, and I was like, that makes even less sense.
Yeah.
No one would be bringing the kid back to that right there. No one would do that.
Right.
So I was like, that would have been better just to have Lady Raven been like, fuck you.
Yeah. I got you, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild. I agree. There's just some
interesting decisions right there at the very end.
Yeah, very much so. I got a couple of little teeny things here. I heard this in the review that we discussed, and I couldn't not think of it, because like once I heard it, I was like, that is what those people sound like. In watching the movie and the way that people talk in the concert, specifically the gentleman that Josh Hartnett interacts with at the T-shirt booth. The guy said that they sound like NPCs, like giving out information in a video game, and I was like, oh my god, that is exactly what they sound like. Like, nobody just talks like that. I think it's Jamie. Is that the... Yeah. Like, nobody just... Oh, so what I heard was
Let me
that
tell
the
you
cops,
something. Yeah.
they've been planning this thing, and it's a trap for the butcher. You're like, that's what they do in video. That's like how you find out information in video games. That's not the way real people talk.
Right.
Dude, I fucking guarantee M. Night Shyamalan was sitting right next to fucking John Carpenter, and they're fucking playing video games, watching basketball and shit.
He's like, all right, listen, here's my movie. And he's like, that sounds perfect. Good job, mate.
But yeah, I heard that. I was like, dude, yeah, his interactions with the clerk at the T-shirt thing, that's very much what that felt like. Anytime you would kind of interact with like the cops or anything like that, very much there is a video game quality to this film, not necessarily in a bad way. Like I thought about it, I was like, dude, this would actually be like a really fun video game to play.
Video game, yep. I play it.
Very like Splinter Cell, just like I feel like I dated myself right there. Just like sneaking around and trying to like, you know, get yourself out of these
it's like the original E.T. game, folks.
Shit.
Back in 1992.
That's when I played video games, when Splinter Cell was a thing. Yeah, anyways, there's too many people walking around in the fucking concert when the concert's happening. Like the thousands of people that are just like in the hallways and stuff. I'm like, is there another convention going on here? Like, what's going on that like all these people are walking around?
I gotta ask how long it's been since you've been to something like that.
I've never been to anything that big. So.
Okay, so when you go to stuff that big, whether it's, I mean, I can think of a few events, and I don't really want to out myself to all the weird things I go to.
Give me one. Give me one.
Well, like a professional baskall game, a professional wrestling
weird.
show, a famous comedian. Like I've gone to all these things recently. There are people, there are groups of people walking around even while stuff is happening.
Yeah, I get. Like it didn't bother me too much in the moment. There was a little bit of just like I was like, what the fuck is going on with like I agree. Like I've been to sport events. You see people, but like it was like the fucking concert got let out at certain points where like they're walking around and shit like that. Like when he pushes the gal down the stairs, it looks like they're getting ready to start the concert, and that shit's been going on for a while. Now, again,
based on my experience, it looked pretty normal to me. My recent experience, I'm just saying.
That's fair.
Like,
that's fair.
Going to Lakers games, going to.
I hate human beings, so I try to avoid big events like that.
You sure do, buddy.
You guys, the ones that are listening, you three, you're good.
We like you guys.
The rest of them, they're the worst. And there's one detail that really stuck out to me. It's actually bothered me the more and more I've thought about it. There's a moment in which one of the characters is I do believe it's Lady Raven talking about how the butcher would drive a dark vehicle, black car rather. And when she said that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense because it would be, you know, it would blend in with the nighttime, be maybe harder to perceive by cameras, But the reason that she says that the person in charge, the FBI profiler, says is that a person with his OCD would want a car that is black because it's a cleaner car, basically. That's what she said. As a person who has pretty much owned black cars exclusively, I can tell you they are the exact opposite of clean.
a person who exhibits OCD symptoms from time to time.
I have quite a bit of OCD. I just washed my car today. It's been 2 weeks since I washed my car, and that thing looked like it had been to the fucking Sierras. I shit you not. They get dirty so fast. I washed my car today.
White
Tomorrow,
is actually better at looking clean.
Yes, absolutely it is.
As the guy who owned a white car.
Something like silver, which is like the best of both worlds because it doesn't quite, like a dark-ish silver looks better. So I was really excited when she was saying it. I was like, yeah, that makes so much sense because like cameras and stuff like that, people would be at nighttime, you just wouldn't be able to see it as much. Fucking Batmobile. There you go.
100%.
So that bit about it being cleanly and tidy, I was like, that's as someone who has OCD and drives a black car, that is one of the things that I hate about that.
Can I chime in with you with that one real quick?
Yes, please.
That was a bad line, and it's a bad line for a couple of reasons. One, I am M. Night. I love you, bro.
M. Night has only ever driven like a white car.
He's only ever driven a white car.
Sure.
No, I love the guy. I am sick of him misusing actual like mental health afflictions as like props.
Yes.
And then like not using them right.
Yes.
So like I don't care if you want to write a character who's got OCD, that's totally fine with me. Like a lot of people have OCD. But don't do it without having any idea what the fuck it means. Like a guy who has psychopathy is a person who is largely immune to stress.
Yes.
Guess what people with OCD are not? They're not fucking immune to stress. They're stressed out all the time.
Yes.
So it's like that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
A person who feels no stress, who feels no pressure, who's not afraid of anything is inherently not going to have OCD. By the way, not a doctor, not a psychologist, not an expert. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But that doesn't make any sense to me based on my knowledge at all. And I don't like it that he just flings stuff like that out there like that. Like I don't like that at all. What you said is totally right. A psychopath who wants to not get caught is going to drive a dark car because it's easier to blend in at night when he's doing his bad things.
Yes.
He doesn't care if it looks dirty in his regular life or not. That's not the point. He doesn't stress out about stuff like that. So and then, like, no, it doesn't run the movie for me. It doesn't, nothing like that. Yeah. But like that was not a good line. It doesn't make any sense. And people shouldn't be using OCD as just like a general adjective for cleanliness.
Well, yeah,
like OCD is like a very specific type of anxiety about things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's also like there's a great moment where he like walks into his garage and he like straightens something like when he's in the middle of terrifying one of his victims, but and I mean like it's kind of like the coughing up blood trope in a movie where like that signifies that someone's really, really sick, which is not really necessarily the case for when you're coughing up blood.
Right.
Does not necessarily mean that you are on the brink of death.
Doesn't mean you're dying or anything.
Yeah.
Like, you could be coughing up blood for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. As someone who has to fucking triple check the locks before going to bed, making sure the stove is off, making sure that like weird things that like if I do did this extra step cause me to send out a butterfly effect that could ripple out and cause me to die sooner or hurt someone by accident or cause an accident had I just left the house right now at this moment? Did that extra step of trying to make sure that those stoves were turned off, did that ruin everything? Or did that make it better? Or did this sort of thing that goes on in your brain, like I can appreciate what he's going for as far as like someone who lives double lives has to be neat and keep things in order.
They have to be precise.
Yeah.
That's not the same as the type of anxiety you're talking about, which is what obsessive compulsive disorder actually feels like.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying.
And the best way that I have heard it, put is that basically like you think you're going to relieve stress by doing X, Y, and Z. Like
you think you have to do X, Y, and Z to relieve that stress.
Locking the door, making sure the door is locked 3 times is going to relieve this idea that someone's going to break into my house in the middle of the night and kill my family. And I don't feel like that's what Cooper's character is like.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
That's my point. It's totally different.
Also, like, these tendencies that are suggested, we do not see even in the most minute amount until that third act of the film.
Yep.
In a way where Shyamalan is very good about laying breadcrumbs,
Mm-hmm.
that does not even become a factor until... And we know that Cooper is the serial killer, so there's no reason to hide that from the audience. He could be having little tics. He could be,
Right.
you know, fixing, touching, and doing things like washing his hands repeatedly. He's at a concert venue. If you're OCD, dude, I went to a fucking mall today, and my kid was touching shit, and my kid was trying to touch me while he was touching, like, video games and shit that 100 other kids have touched. And, like, to my everlasting shame, when my kid is touching stuff that 1,000 other kids have touched and he goes to touch me, I instinctually back away because I don't want all those other little kids' germs going on my hands and then my hands go... Like, that is the type of shit that we are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see any of that. So
Exactly. Well, it's kind of... This goes back also to Dennis in Split.
yes.
Dennis is disciplined and precise.
Yeah.
But then they equate that to OCD, like, oh, well, he doesn't like if the shirt's dirty. And it's like, you don't have to have OCD to be disciplined and precise.
Yeah.
And I feel like Cooper's character is disciplined and precise.
Yes.
He's not OCD.
No.
There's a difference. And I just think that's, and not trying to be too critical here, but I just think that's a little bit sloppy right now.
Yeah.
So I agree with you on that line. That was kind of, I had the same feeling. I let it go very quickly because I was curious about where the movie was going next, but I was like, that was kind of a stupid line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, because the setup was so, like, it stuck out to me even more because the setup was like, oh, yeah,
The setup was
obviously,
really good. And then you were like, wait, what?
that's
stupid.
That's the last thing
Yeah.
that a black car is
clean.
It's the
Yeah.
dirtiest thing in the world, I'll tell you. I'm going to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on car washes over the next fucking 20 years with this car. Any other bad stuff for you? Anything that was, you know, I mean, I feel like that's all kind of the big stuff.
Yeah, that's all kind of the big stuff. I would just say that one of the things I saw people complaining about, well, actually, to your point about the NPC things, I don't think he was trying to write the dialogue as super naturalistic the whole movie.
Well,
I think it was very stylized
yeah.
in a kind of a throwback sort of way.
Well,
That's what I was thinking.
There's also a way that it is framed, and this is why I did make the joke about him playing video games, is because there's this great thing that he does, and I really like this, where when Hartnett is talking to people, like at the venue specifically, it's dead center looking at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. I was like, this makes it very personable and claustrophobic for this character and us as the audience of like, I'm locked in this conversation and I have to fake it right
That's
now.
right. I gotta do this.
This is really great. We're having fun.
Yep.
We're doing a good thing right now.
Mhm.
But I gotta go get back to my kid. So
Mhm.
we'll deal with this later.
Mhm.
I loved all of that.
But he's very good at that, right?
Yeah.
Like he's dialed in. Yeah. Yeah, it was really good.
And I know we're going back to good stuff, but this is something that I just like thought about in terms of that when I was watching it, one of the things that I really liked that happened a couple of times, in addition to that dead center shot, was Shyamalan would have the shots where Hartnett had about like half of his face in like the, you know, left or right half depending on where you're sitting, or rather the right half probably, of the screen, and the rest of it would be just all open and
Mhm.
everything. It would just be like him, like he did it I would say probably like 3 or 4 times in the film, just like this weird perspective thing of Hartnett like watching
Yes.
stuff play out. I really liked those shots.
I did too. Both of those things you just mentioned, the centering of the conversation and the that angle of the camera, those are both things that Hitchcock created.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my point here is like when the characters aren't being completely naturalistic, I don't feel like Shyamalan's trying to do that. I feel like he's trying to do that kind of throwback thing. And those shots you were just talking about, I love that. And that had such a throwback effect. That had me thinking of old movies.
Yes.
In a big way. Yeah.
And I agree, like now when like we're discussing it in terms of like Hitchcock and everything like that, because Hitchcock would do that, where like he would have characters dead center, like looking into the camera, and they would be having conversations
constantly.
Yeah,
he started that, I think, or at least he popularized it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And look at us. We ended the good stuff on the shit, and we ended the shit on the good stuff.
Booyah.
But from here, it's some scary trails because we are heading into truly terrifying tidbits. So here in Truly Terrifying Tidbits, we talk about what scares us in this movie. This being a horror podcast, we try and find the scariest moments in the flick we are discussing. Kalen, I would kind of rate Trap as more of a suspense thriller rather than a proper horror movie. But what do you think? Do you consider this a horror movie?
I really think this is more of a thriller.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure going. I knew it was gonna be a thriller going in. I thought it might have a little bit more of a horror aspect to it. I don't really think it had much.
No.
More of a thriller. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's genre picture. It's horror adjacent.
Definitely.
I do think that this is like gateway horror. Like if you wanted to show somebody who's got kind of maybe a little bit more weaker condition when it comes to scary flicks, this is a nice easy one to kind of get them geared up for something maybe a little bit more.
And there's very horror-y, there are moments that feel very horror movie. The after he burns the woman, his mom, that feels like a horror shot. And then when we see her again and we realize the connection there was that's something he sees, that was very horror to me. It was very psychological horror to me. There's horror aspects to it. I would say for me, a lot of what it is that makes it not very horror-y is that our protagonist is Cooper.
Yeah.
And I always feel like Cooper is going to do a better job than I would in every situation in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because like he's kind of the person we're supposed to be afraid for early on. Like the suspense is if he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And there's suspense there, but I'm also just like, this guy.
He's got stuff up his sleeve.
He's got plans, dude. He knows what to do. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. There is a moment toward the end of the picture when Cooper is seeing the FBI profiler, and I fucking knew that the minute he was seeing this person, but he's imagining it as his mother, and his mother is covered in shadow out the front door. And shit like that is always very creepy to me because that's like, to me, what I imagine like what like scary scenarios as a child and stuff like that, like things that movies and stuff that I saw as a kid. It was always kind of more what you would perceive yourself.
Yes.
And so this idea of like someone standing far away, covered in shadow, but you can see them and maybe you're talking to them or you're hearing them. Shit like that is always so much scarier to me. The peripheral horror, I think would 100%. Be the term for it. So fucking scary. And it's not really what's happening in that moment, but it has degrees of that. So like I just found that like when he's having a conversation with his mother and she's just kind of like covered in shadow like that creepy old lady. That was a good moment for me, I think.
Well, and also wouldn't you agree that those moments are more nightmarish?
Yes.
Like that's what I don't know what everyone in the world's experience of nightmares is like, but to me that's more what a nightmare is like. Yes. That's more what makes a nightmare frightening. Like if I can see a monster with like big teeth, then I see a monster with big teeth. Like I guess that's scary. But not knowing what's there. And I feel like in nightmares usually things are obscured and you're not entirely sure what's happening because that's sort of the nature of a nightmare. It's not logical.
Yeah.
And I felt like he was channeling that very well in that particular scene.
Yeah.
the sort of nightmare nature of it all. Same thing with the way she was staring at him earlier when we don't have context for it.
Yes.
It doesn't make sense. That's like, to me, that's how nightmares feel.
Yes.
Like they don't make sense. There's no explanation. It's not logical. It's just terrifying.
Yeah.
And so I do think he conjured those things well. I think M. Night knows how to make things scary. He understands horror.
Yeah. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. All right. Well, that wraps up that section. So we are going to head on over to the rewatch. Here in the rewatch, we discuss the film's rewatchability, some of our favorite moments from the flick, and rate its overall entertainment value. So, Kalen, if you were going to try to hook someone in to watch Trap, and you were given an opportunity to show them a clip on YouTube, what scene would you show them?
Probably just because it's tough. But just because it gives you the pitch of the movie, probably the conversation with the guy explaining to him the trap.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Even though it doesn't really give you the tone of the whole movie, I feel like that pitches it well to somebody. Like, here's why you should watch it. Yeah.
For me, it's the reveal when Josh Hartnett or Cooper rather, and Lady Raven are in her dressing room.
Yeah.
Like, I would, if I was like trying to convince someone, like, this is the movie we need to watch tonight, I would show them that clip, and if they were like, you know what, I would just put on the movie afterwards, not tell them anything.
Yep.
Like, just show
don't
them
say
that.
a word, just go.
Just go.
Yeah.
Because I think that's it's just a great scene. It tells you everything you need to know about that movie without really telling you how you got there or where you're going.
Right. Yep. That's a good point.
And in tandem with that, we're going to talk about our favorite scene. That's my favorite scene. I love, because up to that point, Josh Hartnett has played.
Yeah.
We've seen degrees of him, but it's all been kind of like in a way where we're almost rooting for him. Like, he does push the gal down the stairs, but like seems
he burns the other girl too. I'm still rooting for him.
We don't see the gal, like, we don't necessarily see him do that either, you know?
Right.
So, you know, we know he does it, but because we don't see him do it, we give him a little bit more benefit of the doubt. He pushes the gal down the stairs, but we know she's all right. So we're doing all this stuff, and the entire time we know he's the guy, but he still has not become sinister in front of our eyes. So that moment when he pulls Lady Raven aside and is like, hey, you know, thank you so much for doing this for my daughter. You know, the thing about, what is it? Was it carbon monoxide? Is that what he's talking about? The thing about carbon monoxide is that the body actually craves it, you know? Da-da-da-da. And she's like, what? And he's like, you need to know these things as a fireman. So you're going to help me and my daughter get out of here. And, you know, just that turn is really, really good. And to see him just go full-blown sinister because, like, I really can't think of too many times where he's played like just like a bona fide villain.
He doesn't
just
usually.
Like 100%. So it's like,
even when he plays more sinister characters, it's always from a different perspective.
Yeah, like from a more sympathetic perspective, I think. Yeah, dude, I just love that scene. I thought it was great. He was just so, like, I could not take my eyes off him. I mean, that's kind of the way it is throughout the whole picture, but that scene specifically I thought was fantastic. What about you? Did you have a favorite scene?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about one scene, that's probably it. But for the sake of not being a boring podcast, I really love watching Lady Raven attempt to fuck with him. Like, from when they get out of there and she's like, I want to go to your house.
Yeah. And
like talking to his family and like to stealing the phone. Like, there's just a certain degree, there's this defiance about this girl. And like, you know, this is a hundreds of millionaire. You know what I mean? Like, this is a super wealthy, famous. She never has to get her hands dirty. She never has to put herself in danger. She never has to risk shit in her life ever again. She is made it, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to fuck with this serial killer.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna beat him. There's something about that. There's
Yeah.
there's a certain it fucks with your expectations. It throws you off. Like, you're not really expecting her to do that. And it creates a sort of a dichotomy that you weren't expecting to see, in like a rivalry that shouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, this tiny little. I think it also helps that Josh Hartnett's a big dude, and she's a tiny little woman. Like, I think that makes it even better, because like there's this, like, you would have to be terrified of him if that was the contrast between the two of you, right? And it sort of just creates this unexpected conflict and rivalry where, like, I wouldn't have guessed, like, when he says, like, you're gonna get me out of here, I wouldn't have guessed that she was gonna openly fuck with him.
Yeah.
I would have guessed that we weren't gonna go into a cat and mouse game. I would have guessed we were going to go into a her trying to get out alive game.
Yeah.
And instead, it wasn't her trying to get out alive. She could get out alive. She could just let him off and dip. And she's like, no, take me to your house. I'm gonna get you fucking caught.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I like that whole sequence, and I especially like the scene in the house. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do, think about it in terms of like what if, like, Cooper exposed himself to her.
Mm-hmm.
What did he think was going to happen after he got to the house that she wasn't going to tell people?
I think that he figured he had time to
contingency
cover it all
plans.
up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He had time to get, like, because the thing is too is he doesn't need to keep anyone from believing he's the butcher. He needs to keep the law from being able to prove that he's the butcher.
Yeah,
right. That's exactly. What ultimately that matters more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1000%. So I have a new category here that I'm honestly, I've been kicking myself ever since I thought of it. I was like, how in God's name did I not think about this at the start of our season? But Shyamalan likes to pop up in all of his movies. That is probably his most Hitchcocking thing that he ever does.
Yep.
And I feel like we need to rate it, or, just give a yay or a nay or however you want to go about it. But we moving forward, we will keep doing this, but we got to kind of do a lightning round for the ones that we've covered so far.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it on a 1 to 10 scale? Do you want to do it on a yay or nay? What's like your preference as far as just like, hey, he shows up in Unbreakable. Do you like this or no? Or he shows up in like Glass. Like what do you think is the easiest?
I mean, I would have no idea how to 1 to 10 scale that.
Yeah,
like that.
I was thinking about that too. That's
pretty broad. 1 to 10 scale. Yeah.
So we could just do yay or nay, like, yeah, this is good, or no, like, it could have been less, it could have been better, or this, that, or the other. So, lightning round, Unbreakable, yay or nay?
Yay.
Yeah, I'm the same way, yay. Split. I'm a nay.
What did he actually do in Split?
He's the security guy with the therapist, like, going through the footage.
Totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like...
No, you're good, you're good. And then he reprises the role who he happens to be both the guys.
Both the guys in Glass, yeah.
And I think I already told you that I didn't.
You're
like
a big
that
nay
one.
on that. Yeah, no, I'm yay on that. I'm good with that.
You're good with that.
Yeah.
Okay. And The Village.
Nay. I didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah, see, I'm actually okay with that one. That one doesn't bother me at all. I think it's at that stage in his career is probably the most indulgent.
Right.
Like, in terms of, like, I think he has a bigger role in Unbreakable, but, like, fewer people knew who he was at that stage in the game.
Sure.
But the only thing that really, like, had the door not faced toward him, like, I would have had no problems with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Had it just been like him talking in the back of his head, like, cool. But I give him a pass because I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's not the worst, like I said, for me, Glass is like, I'm like, dude, you stop. You need
Yeah.
to stop.
You need to cut it out, sir.
And so here we are for Trap, yay or nay?
Yay.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with this. I thought it was actually pretty good. Like he's like, oh yeah, I'm her uncle. What's up? And like I thought he did that part pretty well.
I agree. I was just like, I thought at first I was like, oh, he's just gonna be one of the guys. I'm like, I'm cool with that. And then he's like, I'm her uncle. I was like, why not just be her dad? You fuck. You're already like, why are we doing?
Well, you know,
maybe breaking the fourth wall too much.
That's a great question. I think because maybe her dad wouldn't be working for her.
Yeah.
Like her dad would just have his feet up somewhere being luxurious.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Her uncle might have a job. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. That makes sense. That's fair.
Like if you had hundreds of millions of dollars, would your parents have jobs?
No,
probably not.
Not at all. Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. So that's fair. But it was like as soon as I found out they were related, I was like, oh god, here we
go. I want to throw this out here too. By the way, I yay on The Sixth Sense.
Oh, we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
We will get there.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought we were.
No. Like I was just trying to cover all the ones that we've already. We've already talked about.
Well, now we have to talk about The Sixth Sense.
Well, eventually we'll get there.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
Like I said, I don't think we'll do. We're not gonna do. We're not gonna do Airbender, and we're not gonna do.
No. After Earth. No. I'm never watching those movies, bro.
Yeah,
I ain't got time for that.
No, me neither.
Shyamalan hates those movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, getting down to brass tacks. How often do you see yourself rewatching Trap?
I think I will watch this movie. Like I think I think I will continue to rewatch the movie. I think it'll be probably every several years. I don't think it'll be every year. I don't think it'll be every other year. But I do think I'll come back to this one. Because it is the type of thriller I really like. And it is Shyamalan plying a lot of the craft that he does that I really like and enjoy. I like Hartnett. I liked Salika Shyamalan in this role, and I generally think this is a fun and enjoyable movie. So I think I'll come back to it. That said, we just watched this last week.
Yeah.
So we don't know what our rewatch factor is yet, really. Yeah.
Exactly. I got it at a 3 out of 10 on a rewatch scale, which I feel like is probably not too far off from where you're at. I wager you're probably at like a 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would specifically come back to it for the Josh Hartnett aspect. As far as Shyamalan's films go, is probably on the lower end as far as like my rewatch. Like I said, really like the concept. Had their like that last like 25 minutes of the movie really like I'm like that makes it hard for me to go into this going like, oh yeah, this is a ride, man.
Right.
You know? Right. So I'm not sure. Really not sure if like honestly if I will rewatch it again in my lifetime. It could be like a Village thing where I'm like, oh yeah, that movie. Let's go back and check it out.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But that's just rewatch, folks. That's just like we're just talking, you know.
I do think I'll rewatch this movie though.
Yeah.
Like it may not be soon, but I do think I'll rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
And I also want to say I definitely
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So we're gonna go ahead and say that is 4 out of 10 on the rewatch scale for the Johnny Horror podcast. And speaking of Johnny Horror, we're gonna go ahead and hop on over to the Johnny Horror score.
Woo.
So here at the Johnny Horror Score, we are going to talk about the response to the film, which we are still kind of in. So that could be fairly brief and give our final thoughts and rankings. So, Kalen, would you do me the grand honor of reading release and reception?
Yeah, bitches. All right, let's see where we're at here. Remember, folks, I'm dyslexic, so.
But he's handsome, so give him a break.
It makes it okay. Trap was released in the United States by Warner Brothers Pictures on August 2nd, 2024. It is the second film of Shyamalan's to be distributed by the studio after Lady in the Water from 2006, and marks the filmmaker's departure from Universal Pictures, which distributed 5 consecutive films of his, starting with The Visit in 2015. Universal initially scheduled the film's release for April 5th, 2024. In 2023, Warner Brothers acquired and pushed the film to August 2nd, 2024. In 2024, they postponed it to August 9th and later brought it back forward to blah, 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 blah. Like, why is that there?
Why is that even
The film
necessary?
premiered at Alice Tully Hall in New York City on July 24, 2024. It did not screen for critics before its theatrical release. Regarding marketing results, Relish Mix described social media buzz as mixed positive, and Deadline Hollywood reported low awareness but high interest, similar to that received by Longlegs earlier in the year. The film's social media content accumulated 259.2 million impressions across platforms, 47% above norms for first-time installment genre titles. Reception, box office. As of August 6th, 2024, Trap has grossed 19.3 million in the United States and Canada, 4.6 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of 23.9 million in the United States and Canada. Trap was projected to gross 15 to 25 million from 3,181 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made 6.6 million on its first day, including an estimated 2.2 million from Thursday night previews. That's us. It debuted to 15.5 million, finishing third at the box office behind holdovers Deadpool and Wolverine and Twisters. Did you want me to read critical response?
Yes.
All right. According to review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, critics thought the film was another divisive work from Shyamalan, but its dark humor, tense atmosphere, and strong central performance may just be enough for fans of his work. On the website, 54% of the 134 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 5.6 out of 10. The website's consensus reads, an arc thriller given some grounding by Josh Hartnett's committed performance. Shyamalan's Trap will ensnare those who appreciate its tongue-in-cheek style, while the rest will be eager to wriggle out from it. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 53 out of 100 based on 41 critics indicating mixed or average reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average C+ out of A+ to F scale, while those surveyed by PostTrek gave it an overall positive score of 66%, with an average rating of 2.5 out of 5 stars. Benjamin Lee of The Guardian gave the film 2.5 stars, writing, Trap is a thriller that incorrectly thinks it's fiendishly smart. Maybe if it was more aware of how stupid it actually is, it might have been a lot more fun. Peter Travers of ABC wrote, Hartnett performs miracles in making Cooper a serial butcher and a devoted family man living in the same body. You believe him, which is a trick Shyamalan otherwise fails to achieve, as this misfire builds to a sequel-begging climax that ups the ante on Shameless. Okay, Peter Travers. Sure, buddy. Vanity Fair's Richard Lawson said that Shyamalan has built a solid foundation, as he tends to do. Clever setup, appealing lead actor, and interesting and quite relevant cultural milieu. But fairly quickly, Trap's sleek designs peels away, and we see the shoddy engineering it's been hiding. Jesse Hassinger of the AV Club gave it a B+ grade, writing, It may cook more purely and entertainingly than anything in Shyamalan's last decade of self-styled pop hits. It also suggests that there are discordant notes that he can't and probably shouldn't ever get out of his system. IndieWire's Ryan Latanzio gave it a B grade, calling it too plausibility stretching to actually be scary, but Hartnett's well-calibrated performance as a psycho dad, the type who sends PTA moms all aflutter, is too dangerously charismatic to ignore. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
I would say that generally speaking, I feel like that I would feel as opposed to like what we last reviewed, The Village.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the general consensus is not too far off from what you and I feel about this movie. They use stronger, bigger, dumber words. But I do feel that a lot of people are saying that this movie starts off pretty strong. Hartnett's very good, loses its footing in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not as good as it could have been. Now, with that in mind, final thoughts and ranking on Trap.
Well, I agree with what you just said, but I just think the overall respect paid to the movie isn't quite there. This is not a person. Me talking, guys. This is not a 5 out of 10 movie. And if you think this is a 5 out of 10 movie, you need to watch more movies. Like, I think a lot of people will give movies bad ratings, and you can tell they've never actually seen like an actual bad movie. I don't think this is a 5 out of 10 movie. I think it's simply far too competent and interesting.
Yeah.
And movies in that range are just not this competent. They're not this interesting. They don't have performances this good. They don't generate this kind of interest typically.
Yeah.
I think Trap is a cool, unique, interesting thriller. I think it's a great love letter to Hitchcock. I think especially if you're a fan of Hitchcock or Shyamalan or anyone in between there, there's a lot in between there, right? I think if you're into that kind of thing, I think this movie's for you. I think if you're a fan of Josh Hartnett and thrillers in general, I think this movie's for you. And I do think that, to me, I do think this movie deserves to be considered a creative success.
Yeah.
Not on the level of what have you. Like, it's not Split or anything like that. It's certainly not Signs or Unbreakable. But I do think, using sports terms, I think he clearly hit a single here or hit a double here, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
And I don't love that it's framed like he struck out. I don't think he struck out. You know, maybe you can even call it a walk, right? But it's not. This is not a miss to me. This is not a failure. It was a cool movie. It was fun to watch. It is in my lower tier of Shyamalan originals. Again, we're not counting After Earth or Avatar because those movies are bad, and even he acknowledges that they're bad. But in terms of like the Shyamalan original, it does go in the lower tier. But I think it continues my general thought that none of the Shyamalan originals actually suck, except for The Happening. That's the only actual bad movie he's made, in my opinion.
And out of 10?
I'm going to say probably like a 6.5.
Cool.
Yep.
For myself, I will say that going into this, with the exception of Glass, strictly based on the trailer that I saw, that this was probably, as far as Shyamalan was concerned, like one of his movies is probably the movie I was most excited for since The Happening.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being incredibly excited about The Happening, thinking that it was
Same.
going to be a phenomenal film. It was like, at the time, it was like his first R-rated movie. Might still be his only R-rated movie. And I had really, really high hopes.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there one day, folks. We will get there.
We'll get there.
Much to our chagrin. So I will say that I was not as disappointed by this movie as I was Glass.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even go into it saying that I was disappointed. Again, the way, like, specifically with somebody like Shyamalan, what we talked about on our previous episodes, and we will continue to reiterate on our future episodes, is that just because the movie is not what I wanted it to be is not mean it's not what he wanted it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one making it.
Yeah, it's his movie.
So, speaking as somebody who's created content that almost no one has seen, but I've still made stuff. Like, I made it for me, and if other people enjoy it, cool. Shyamalan funded this himself. He made it with his daughter. I'm sure it is probably one of the most important pieces of art that he has made because he made it with his daughter. So that's nothing I can ever take away from him. Mm-hmm. And Josh Hartnett gives arguably one of the most interesting performances I've seen not only from him, but in recent memory.
Yeah.
Just in general. A fantastic performance. This movie has a great concept. I don't think it sticks the landing. Very few movies in this category do, if we're being completely honest. So I can't hold that against it. I really, overall enjoyed the experience. Chitter chatter and giggles aside from the rest of the audience,
Yeah.
but I liked very much getting to sit down with you and Sandy and sit back and enjoy this film, because the last time we saw a movie together was a Shyamalan movie, and that was Glass.
That's right.
So that again, these are sorts of things that enhance the viewing experience for me. Like I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to it in any near future. But like I said, the thing that I will continuously go back to is that I think the concept is great. I think what Shyamalan was able to do with his time and money and his energy with his daughter and in this concert and constructing this whole narrative with thousands of extras and getting them all to rehearse and be in sync with one another. And they shot it on film.
That's right, dude.
And
on location, on film.
Yeah.
The real deal.
And again,
like they used to make movies, folks.
Yes, like in the good old days.
Yeah.
And again, Josh Hartnett. The man is like the fucking shit in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, go watch it for him. I'm right there with you. I'm at a 6 out of 10. So that brings us to something like a 6.25. 0.25 out of 10 for the Jony Horror Podcast, which is slightly above average from the rest of the world. So there we go.
Just to be clear, I'd be more comfortable if that was the average score. I'd feel less like there was the Shyamalan
again, I almost feel like we need to add another tier with all the other tiers that we already have, but of is this a movie that fans of Shyamalan will appreciate, or that the general public will appreciate? Because one is far superior than the other, not to pat ourselves on the back, but we like movies and we really appreciate cinema in general, and the general population is fucking stupid. So I don't know what else to tell you, folks. You are 1000% entitled to your opinion. If you're watching this and listening to this, and you don't like the movie, well, I'm totally okay with that, because you're watching and listening to this however many episodes in, which means that you more or less enjoy listening to us, and that probably means you have halfway decent taste. So I respect your opinion then.
I was going to say, we don't count you amongst the fucking stupid he just mentioned.
You are not the dumbasses that were in the movie theater with us.
You're listening to movie podcasts because you care about movies and you think about these kinds of things. So that's not who we're talking about.
Exactly.
We're talking about the kind of people who were making a scene in our movie theater because they thought it was more fun to clown the movie than to be a part of the experience. Yeah. And people like that's opinions shouldn't be taken seriously.
And I said it once, I said it 1,000 times. If you have ever even attempted anything as hard as trying to make a movie, then you will appreciate the fact that any movie ever gets made, ever.
Hell
good
yeah.
or bad.
Hell yeah.
With all that said, Kalen, if you were going to feature Trap at the Jony Horror Drive-In, what film would you double feature it with?
Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo.
Nice. Elaborate.
Just the movie that I thought of most while I was watching this film was Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. From the way that it was shot, like a lot of the shots we were talking about earlier, but just to the way that it was written as a thriller that really kind of plays with your expectations and goes in directions that you don't expect it to go. And like, you know, there's the switcheroo in this movie.
Yeah.
There's a switcheroo of sorts. I'm not going to spoil this. You guys might not have seen Vertigo. There are switcheroos of sorts in Vertigo where the movie really goes in the third act in directions that you don't see coming. And just this very Hitchcockian movie made me think of that specific Hitchcock movie while I was watching it. Like that was the thing that came to my mind, was like, oh, this reminds me a lot of Vertigo. And I would say Vertigo is probably considered one of the better Hitchcock movies. I don't really consider it, like when I think about the really good Hitchcock movies, like Psycho and Rear Window and Rope and the birds, and yeah, like I don't really have it in that tier. And I guess that's part of what made me think of it too. This isn't in Shyamalan's elite tier, but it's a quintessential Shyamalan film. I think that's kind of a quintessential Hitchcock film, and I think it's the kind of thing he had on his mind when he made this movie.
I love Vertigo. I saw Vertigo as a child when I
Wow.
didn't see movies like that, and
Right.
it scared
Yeah, I bet.
the piss out of me.
Yeah.
The dream sequence.
Yeah,
like,
I was just thinking that. I'm like,
it
that's
was
really scary if you're a kid.
Wild, like just totally unprepared, and like the music in it. Like I remember lying in my bed just having that visual and that music, and just the ending of that movie is fucked.
It's bonkers. No spoilers, guys. That movie is bonkers. That's kind of why it fits here for me.
And I remember being, and when I got to be an adult and I got that box set that I lent you and I rewatched it, I was like, all those feelings came back. I was like, this movie's fucking terrifying. For my pick, there is a fantastic little gem of a movie starring Elijah Wood and John Cusack. It's called The Grand Piano, and it takes place during a concert performance of a pianist who has been given an earpiece, and if he makes one wrong note during this essentially impossible performance that he has to put on with his piano, he will be killed by a sniper in the audience. Or and the setting and the suspense. I will say, I've only ever seen this movie once. I really want to go back to it. But for my money, it's better than Trap. Very simple. Think phone booth meets the Bugs Bunny sketch with the fucking piano, you know?
Okay, yeah.
Like that's what it is. John Cusack plays the killer, and Elijah Wood is the pianist, and it is so suspenseful and so well made. But the setting of being in like a concert hall and everything, I do just feel like it's very like masterful sort of thing. I think honestly, it's really hard because I do think it's just structurally a better film. But I think because of the way it's paced and the narrative and everything, it's a little bit more of a slow burn. So I think you probably put that first and then round it out with Trap, because Trap just gets a little fucking off the rails. So,
yeah.
But yeah. Well, gang, that is gonna wrap up this episode of the Johnny Horror Podcast. Kayla and I are both very, very happy to have been able to discuss this film. Hopefully, I can be on the ball and have this out within like the next week, because it's been a week since we've seen the movie. So hopefully we can have it out. It'll be 2 weeks for you guys to listen to this. Upcoming for the Johnny Horror Podcast, I'm really trying to figure out timeline wise if we have time to squeeze in another recording in September and save signs for October, or if we got to do that first and just kind of ride the wave. Just because spooky season gets very busy for me specifically. And our signs episode is going to have a lot of moving parts because we're going to have a number of guests on that one. So I can't guarantee what our next episode is going to be. It will probably be signs, but if for some reason I can fit in something else before then, who knows? It'll be a Shyamalanian feature for sure, one way or another. So until then, I am Johnny Horror, and with me as always, Kalen Behrman. We're the Johnny Horror Podcast, and we are going to keep on talking about movies. So we just hope that you enjoy listening to us talk about them. Until then, you kids be good to each other, be half decent human beings, and we will see you motherfuckers on the flip side.
Peace.
Adios, muchachos!